Good evening or afternoon, everybody, and welcome to a little bonus live stream here on a Sunday afternoon. It's basically going to be a small roundtable, new group that's been started very recently called the Low Sodium Superfriendom. It'll be hosted by the Loose Screw, and as always, when I do these kind of live streams, I'll not be able to respond to your guys' messages in chat because that would just be confusing for all the other guys we'll be talking on Discord. While we're running this chat, it's going to be around the fleet carriers. We're going to talk both about where the whole thing started and where we think it is now, where we hope it will go in the future, and all that kind of stuff. But in the background, while we're talking about that, I'll just be running some mining. I'm on one of my alts, my fleet carrier alts, currently collecting money towards a fleet carrier, trying to go from Sidewinder to a fleet carrier, and I'm up at 1.8 billion right now. So I am just gonna go and I'm gonna get the guys on Discord online.
Yeah, I got it turned off myself. So.
There we go. I'm back and live.
Good deal.
I assume you're still waiting for
yeah
other computer. Hold on.
Welcome down to Earth Astronomy and your stream of wonderful, beautiful people. And welcome Plater, who's now just joined this stream.
Oh, you said beautiful people, and here I am.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So Burr and Rainey will be joining us in just a moment, and then we'll get it going. But in the meantime, how's everybody doing?
Doing great. I'm mining. I can't complain.
Right on.
I'm good, man. I'm flying spaceships.
Absolutely. You know what we should do right before we actually start this, like, officially? We should
that was perfectly timed.
You heard that, yeah.
Crack a cold one, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's coffee today for me. We're still morning over here.
Yeah.
You're no fun. Well, then again, I had to get up for work starting at like 2 a.m. So I've been up already for 9 hours, so I'm good.
You say 9 hours?
All right.
Yes, sir.
So Burr and Reenie are here.
Yep, Burr and Rennie are good to go. So we're gonna hit the go button.
Hello, everyone.
Hello.
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 Now recording.
Ooh. Hello.
Hello and welcome, everyone. This is a very special edition of our stream, of everybody's stream. For those that don't know me, my name is Ty Worsham, and I'm the host of the Loose Screws podcast. And we are bringing together the Low Sodium Super Friends Fleet Carrier Roundtable. So I'm going to go down in alphabetical order because try to rank people by awesomeness, it would be impossible. So alphabetically, we got Mr. Crazy Driver, Alec Turner. How's it going this morning? Evening, whatever it is for you.
Hi, everyone. Hello.
From the Burr Pit, we have the amazing and beautiful Commander Reenie. How you doing this morning?
Oh,
Evening.
I really thought that was going to be me.
Very well, nicely done.
And
Here we go. Yep, come on.
And then we also have from Down to Earth. And apparently, Reenie decided to let Commander Burr out of his cage and join us. So how's
It
it
is
going?
Sunday. I'm very well, thank you, mate. Hello, everyone. Yeah, really good, thanks.
I'm really glad to have you guys. From Down to Earth Astronomy, we have the one and only Astro back. I think you just got back from your trip, didn't you?
Yeah, well, most of it was cancelled because of, well,
oh yeah,
human thing, malware.
Yeah, malware. Yeah. From Galnet News Digest, we have Commander Watherspoon.
Good evening.
And of course, and I think I actually don't know my ABCs because no, I did it right. We also have Commander Joe Plater with us. How you doing there, sir?
I'm good, thank you. I'm not sure about the ABC thing, you know.
Yeah, I got look. I got confused for just a second there about the difference between G and J. Don't worry about it. I'm slow, man. And of course, I also have from the Loose Screws podcast. I have Commander Kai.
Hello, brother. You really, if you were gonna do it in order of awesomeness, it should have just been Rini and a bunch of other dudes.
You're such a sweet talker.
Honestly.
And I also have Commander Trax with us. We have the whole crew from Loose Screws. How's it going there, Trax?
Oh, we're all right here. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever. Hello.
So I think everybody is actually streaming to their own individual platform. So let me just say hello to everybody out there. So
I'm not.
oh well,
I'm not. But I might use this in evidence later.
oh lord.
I think it's only me and Plato
Well,
streaming, right?
We're definitely gonna get roasted by Watherspoon, and that's awesome. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah,
Streaming
definitely.
from my
Yeah.
hallway.
So kind of the point of all this is that there has been a fair amount of negativity, some warranted, most not warranted, about fleet carriers and actually FDev in general of late. So we kind of got together and decided we wanted to have, number one, some constructive conversations and some constructive feedback that we could provide listeners and provide FDev, because there's some really good things with fleet carriers and there's some really negative things with fleet carriers. And we wanted to talk about the beta process and how some things have changed, some things we still want to see change, and some things that were kind of changed quietly and didn't really tell nobody. So we're going to get right into it. Kind of our first thing I want to talk about is I want to hear y'all's thoughts on fleet carriers as a product from the April 2nd announcement and what y'all thought about it. And we'll just go down the list. Alec?
Okay. So do you mean just generally thoughts on fleet carriers before we got to see them in beta?
Yeah. Like kind of what you thought about what they would be and kind of maybe how they kind of played out a little bit.
Yeah. Okay. So I mean, my role
donation
in
for
this
your
discussion might
FC
be
upkeep.
fairly small.
I made it much
because
smaller
I
now that
never
the
really-
cost has been
I
reduced.
was never really that excited about fleet carriers. I didn't see much of a role for myself personally. I guess I obviously imagined that they would be a big ship that would carry your fleet, that you'd be able to move around. I kind of one of the people that liked the idea that they were a squadron thing and was kind of mildly, whatever. It seemed a shame that they made them personal. But yeah, I just thought they'd be a big ship that would carry people's fleets and you could move them around the galaxy. So in that regard, that's exactly what we got.
Okay. Commander Burr, let's hear your thoughts.
I mean, overall, I suppose with the initial announcement, I was, generally speaking, I was quite pleased. They were, I guess, sort of about what I was expecting, rather than if I had all the money in the world and all the time to spend it, what I would have liked. That's to say, like technologically wise, they sort of very much been implemented as a large movable station, rather than something like a huge anaconda where you could sit on a bridge and steer it around. And we were having a discussion, actually funny, in the house today as to whether that would have actually made a difference to how you use your carrier. And the general opinion we came to, which I'm sure we'll get onto later, is it probably wouldn't have changed anything anyway. And also I just think trying to implement something like that would have just been horrendously expensive. But with the initial announcement, I was, generally speaking, I was very pleased, although the decommissioning issue did give me a moment of pause, I have to say. Quite uncomfortable pause as well.
Well, let's go to Commander Rini.
Without understanding them an awful lot, because I'm new to the game, probably one of the newer ones to the game, so I didn't have much history with fleet carrier. I was glad to see some content. The initial look at it looked quite exciting without delving too deep into it, because obviously a lot since then. I think the wait had been so long, there was a kind of relief almost just see something come out. But then obviously what's happened since then has dragged it down quite severely. So, but on the details of what they brought to the game, they were quite new to me. So it's taken me the last couple of weeks to sort of get my head around them and what they can do. But yeah, I was pleased to see just something come out. Long wait of complete and utter silence. FDev.
Let's go to Astro.
Yeah, I mean, we knew for a long time that they were going to be personally owned. They were moving away from the squadron-owned carrier concept, and I think the initial what they came out with was pretty close to what I had expected. They were a little closer to actual stations. I thought it would be more like ships, but overall, I was pretty happy with what they came out with with the initial announcements. There were some obvious things there that needed changing. Upkeep being one of them, but I'm pretty sure we'll get into much more of that in a second. But overall, I think it was pretty spot on what I had expected. There was definitely some features in there that I hadn't expected, like the commodity market and the ability to sell ships and modules, but overall, like the things I expect them to do, they can do.
Waterspoon.
Well, I suppose I like to sort of think of it kind of holistically, that these things have been 2.5 years in the brewing, and they were announced way back in October 2017 at Frontier Expo 2017 by Sandros and Marco as a little nice add-on to Squadrons. Okay, so that's what they were originally sort of intended to be. I think over the development time they've changed. They're not that anymore. They're not an add-on into Squadrons. What they are now is the precursor to what's coming at the end of the year. Certainly the existence of player-owned persistent objects is a massive change in the way that Elite Dangerous works. And rather than thinking of fleet carriers on their own, I'd prefer to think of them as something that might be telling us what's going to come in the future. And I'm reasonably positive that what we've got is something that is effectively a movable station, but it's a station that we own that's persistent across all the different versions of the game, all the different instances of the game, all the platforms, and something that we can kind of put our flag on and say this is ours. This is my fleet carrier. Yeah.
Commander Plater.
So yeah, I'm kind of looking back to that 2017 as well. When they were first spoken about, and the idea of them being squadron carriers and it being something to work to as a squadron, and the fact they've been changed to essentially individual private carriers. I've got no particular issue with that. I'm okay with that kind of happening. I saw that, and again, we've known about that for kind of quite a while. That would be coming, and I was okay with that. I thought it was like, yep, cool, that's all right. I will endeavour to make sure I have enough money to have one, so I can give it. My squadron can use it, and it's kind of, I'm in a unique position because I did know for quite a while that the idea was coming that we were going to be able to upgrade them or purchase new facilities for them. Well, I've said it before. I sat down for breakfast after the Frontier Expo with Adam Woods and Sandro, and they kind of spoke about that as an idea. And it's interesting to see how that's kind of evolved over the last 2.5 years to kind of give us what we have now. And like Astro said, a little bit of tweaking, but overall, I'm feeling pretty positive about them. I like the game mechanics that they can potentially introduce, and they have just a little bit of tweaking on the numbers front.
Kai?
So I'm going to be a little bit of a roller coaster ride of emotions here. The first question or the first thing here you're talking about is as they were on the announcement on April 2nd. And at that point, I was over the moon happy. I was like, holy crap, this isn't just going to be like, okay, we have these 3 loadouts. This is now way more sort of granularly customizable. You could kind of set it to your use case. The 25,000 tons of storage was like, heck yeah. I had to modify myself there. The player trading, I was super excited about. and everything was huge thumbs up as of April 2nd. We're going to get to a little bit of a downturn in my feelings on the next question.
Tracks.
Yeah, so for me too, I again, I felt kind of roller coastery. I tried to not let my hopes get up about unreleased things just in general, because I feel like I know better, but I'm a human being and it's kind of impossible to fully do that. But I was really excited when things were announced. And not, I didn't feel like it was going to change all that much, that it went from being a squadron based thing to a player owned thing, because it's so expensive that it would end up being sort of a squadron used thing anyway. So I don't know, all things seemed quite good on April 2nd to me, and I was rather excited as well. And I think I echo Kai on that.
So let's spin around, and this is kind of a two-parter here. So first, I want to know your thoughts on
Whoa.
Yes?
We didn't hear the thoughts of Ty on question 1. I want to hear your thoughts too, brother.
Well, I mean, I've been excited about fleet carriers ever since they were squadron carriers, and I the only thing that was kind of out there for me was, I mean, you can go back and listen to other episodes of my podcast and hear my idea was to fly one out and then take my vet, do exploring, and then jump another 500 light years, do exploring in a 500 light year bubble, and keep doing that over and over again.
In your vet?
Yes, from my fleet carrier in my vet, because I've done exploring in my vet and it's a freaking nightmare. But anyway, but I love my vet. But anyway, so if we let's fast forward a little bit to your thoughts on beta week 1. So I want to hear your thoughts, and I want to hear the state that they were in as of week 1. Would you buy one? And we will start with Alec.
Okay, cool. So, yeah, the initial price, I mean, 5 billion, I haven't got that. I did try for a couple of weeks leading up to beta to try and get that. I don't think I'm going to get it. We might find a way of borrowing it from someone. So I tried the beta totally as a kind of customer to a fleet carrier rather than owning one. And there were a whole bunch of things in the beta that I initially thought were stunning, actually. The visuals of the jump sequence I thought was stunning. I thought it was amazing that you could get to the other end and see a ship arrive. That was unexpected. I thought the audio was sensational. You know, the whole thing of being in a jump sequence when you're down in the hangar and you can't even see where you're going. That works surprisingly well. I found that incredibly atmospheric, even though
I love that bit. Yeah.
Yeah, I do too. I thought it was surprisingly atmospheric, actually. I tell you one thing that did also stun me in the beta was the sheer number of fleet carriers. I just didn't realize. I genuinely didn't realize how rich the community were. You know, I went to Bahrain in the beta, and I think where did they start out? I forget where they started. One of the other.
There was a few systems. We bought ours in DSO, and
right, yeah, DSO. You know, there was over 125 fleet carriers in Bahrain.
Whoa.
And I did think that was a bit dark, but it was also, that amazed me how many fleet carriers there were. But I guess the one thing that you guys are going to talk a lot about, which is like the reaction to the upkeep costs and just how ludicrous they were. I didn't pick up on that at all when I was playing the beta. It was only later when I started seeing, you know, the videos from all you guys and Obsidian Ant and the reaction on the forum come in. So that was all. I didn't get that firsthand. It was only secondhand. I thought, oh wow, okay, people seem pretty unhappy with some of this stuff. But so my first reaction to what I saw in the beta was pretty good, actually, I have to say.
I guess. Sorry, mate, go on.
I was just gonna say burp it.
Yeah. So I'd echo what Alex said. Like I say, we bought ours in DSO, and I think by about mid-morning, you could walk from the central star in DSO to the outer planets if you wanted to. There were that many fleet. We actually took screenshots of it. It was that insane. I'd love to see the metrics actually that obviously Frontier exclusively have access to as to how many people picked up the game again as a result of that beta, or how many people sort of carried on but jumped into the beta. But as a product right out the gate, I was interested in them based on what we'd seen on the live stream that Stephen Benedetti hosted. When they got into the game, as I say, the decommissioning issue had given me a moment of pause for sure. But the actual upkeep costs when they got into the game were spectacularly, ludicrously ridiculous, personally. And had they shipped in that state, there's absolutely no way I would have got one. No way in heaven or hell would I have even considered it, because there's no way I could keep up with that kind of upkeep. With that said, at no point did I think they were going to stay at that level. I think that was, I do think that was, intended to be a first pitch, and then, as a community and a company, we'd negotiate down, I guess. Whether that was a good PR move or not, I'm inclined.
I think no is the answer to that.
I'm kind of torn on it, because I guess Frontier have I hope Frontier have their reasons for doing that. I mean, if nothing else, we're sitting here talking about fleet carriers kind of as a result of that first week, maybe. So there's an argument there as to whether there's no such thing as bad publicity. But I personally feel, and I think I said this on a video, I personally felt that after the huge delay that we'd had with fleet carriers in particular, and also it had been quite a rough year for Elite anyway. I hate to use the word content when it comes to Elite, because it's not that kind of game as far as I'm concerned. But there hadn't been anything new in the game really for a while. I think Elite desperately needed a good solid win at that point, and that would have been a nice opportunity. Because only a week later, we're at the point where I think Frontier probably wanted us to be anyway. So why we couldn't have
themselves in the foot.
Yeah, it kind of felt like that, certainly in this household anyway, that maybe they shot themselves in the foot there. But I don't get to see the numbers that they're seeing, so
or reasoning behind why they put the prices so high to start with.
Yeah, but I know we found it exhausting, didn't we? It was just, it was unbelievable. But yeah, in answer to your actual question, absolutely no way would I have got a carrier at that rate had it been in the live game. No way.
Well, I'm gonna ask the same question to Astro.
I think I would, but I would have a very clear exit strategy. I mean, with the upkeep prices as they were, I mean, I personally think the way they came out, the core idea of what they have with having different services you can enable or disable, you can buy them or not buy them. I really like that. I would like to see even more of that. Obviously, the upkeep prices were high, and that's why I would be a little, make sure I have an exit strategy. Basically, decide how much would I be willing to sacrifice trying out the fleet carriers on the live server, and then look at the return when you actually sell the fleet carriers again. Because they can turn a profit, I think. But whether you can turn a profit with that kind of upkeep, that's probably more difficult. I don't know. But I would definitely give it a go. So I think, yes, I would have bought a fleet carrier, but I would have had a clear plan to how to get rid of it again and how long I was going to keep trying to make it turn a profit before I would sell it again.
Hey, Alec, you had something you wanted to interject after Burr?
Yeah, just to chip in really, because I guess it'll come up again and again, but Burr mentioned the bad PR of it, and I'm sure a lot of other people were as well. And I was reflecting on that and thinking that actually, okay, so this is because this is our salt-free stream, so I'm trying to look for positive ways to view these things. Firstly, a beta isn't a PR exercise. A beta is a testing exercise. I know it obviously has a PR effect, but I think I'm right in saying that first and foremost, a beta is a way of testing stuff to see if it works, if the numbers are going to work, and secondly, maybe a PR exercise. So if we think of it in that light, and if you're going to release a beta and you want to set some prices and you want to set some costs, if you set them too low, you're not going to get a lot of people, or the same number of people going, oh, these are too low, I wish it was more expensive. You're not going to get accurate, useful feedback, I think. And
you're right.
So I just slightly wonder, and this is obviously this is a very rose-tinted view of Frontier, whether Frontier fell on their own sword for this and deliberately set the prices high to get the best results they could from the beta feedback, even though they knew initially it would be bad PR. You know, did they think ahead? Did they think?
Yeah.
No.
That's a point.
Because by setting them high, they get such strong feedback about how
Oh, really?
exactly
I've not
how.
noticed.
Yeah, right. they get the most feedback they have, and I think it was on your stream there where I think Bruce was saying, you asked him what do you think about all the feedback, kind of expect the grimace, and he said it's great, it's way better than no feedback at all. So anyway, that was just what I wanted to chip in, is to say maybe the beta isn't a PR exercise, and maybe setting the prices high was the best way to get the best numbers that they needed.
Point.
Yeah.
Well, let's go to Plater, and we'll come back to Wotherspoon.
Yeah, I just say with the whole kind of the state that they released in, I initially would say no, I wouldn't buy them. That's a flat no, just because I don't think you'd be capable of making a profit from them, or even them covering their own costs. So for me, that was just a bit of a that's that question. No, I think the upkeep was higher than it should have been, and obviously everyone agreed. Now with that, the talk of whether or not it was intentionally way sky high, to be like hey, look, this is what it is, and everyone goes, oh, I don't want that, and then they go, have this instead. I did a poll on my community page of the YouTube channel, and the results are actually surprising. I think it's 61% of people that took part in the poll think Frontier did it on purpose. It intentionally went really high so that then they could come in low. And be like, hey, look, we listened to you. Whilst the remaining 40% was made up of people who thought that it was no, wouldn't do it because it'd be bad press, and they don't need bad press. And two, just no. Why they just no. That wasn't the case. They just kind of got it wrong. And I think it's an interesting idea, but then again, none of us will know why it was done. We can only kind of assume that it's one thing or the other, or we can go with our personal beliefs on it. I personally don't feel that Frontier would intentionally make something that has been hyped and ramped up and been long awaited. Here it is, and it'd be a damp squib, to start off with. I don't think that would happen intentionally. I think it was very much the case of, oh, that is a bit high, you're right. We'll bring that down, and we definitely should. The only thing to bear in mind of that, if we're being kind of critical and constructive about it, is that when we saw those numbers from the live stream with Stephen, Dav, and Luke, the numbers were still higher than what we've been given now. And they're obviously much lower than what were originally pitched in Beta 1 when it first launched. So there's just something to think about, really. You're not saying one is right or wrong, but it's something to think about as there's been a decision-making process there that we aren't privy to, and we won't necessarily ever find out why it happened. But we can look at kind of what we have going forward, and that changes have been listened to. I think that's the important thing.
But I think that speaks a good bit to Alec Turner's point of the whole point of this exercise. It is a beta. You're going to start things sort of a little too high or a little too not cool from that end of the spectrum of whatever question it is, and then adjust and adjust and adjust until you get it right.
And if I can chip in on that, a little too high doesn't quite cut it. Because if it's just slightly too high, people might accept it. It needs to be quite a lot too high for people to then say, "Whoa, that's too high." So it's tricky. I don't know if they did that.
It's a point. It's definitely a valid viewpoint.
I was wondering at some point if they basically sat down and said, okay, we're not going to look at how much it's going to cost in terms of numbers. They're going to decide on a number of play hours in order to keep a fleet carrier running. So I was considering if they were basically saying, well, we want people to spend 1-2 hours a week, and that should be able to keep a fleet carrier running. And then they were looking at mining and say, oh, but people are making up to 200 million per hour, so we can easily put it at 150 per week, because that's just an hour of mining, and then people should be good to go. I don't know if it's that train of thought, but I find it unlikely that they would look solely on mining, but it just popped into my head a few days ago when I was thinking about it, and I'm not sure, but it could have been one way to look at it, rather than looking at specific prices, then look at playtime.
Yeah. So if we look at some of the other things that Frontier got wrong in the past, the mass of the Anaconda's hull is set way too low, and there's no way on earth they can ever move it back up again. The AFMU has 0 mass. There's no way they can ever fix that.
Well, there
They
is,
got
but
a lot of kickback when they sort of balanced the Mamba down after the beta, didn't they? Last beta. So these are all places where things were set too low to start with. So if the beta is an engineering exercise, as Alex says, then what you want to do is set things relatively high, get an actual feedback for how it's working, and then adjust down, make it better. And it's a bit like a sound engineer adjusting the volumes, isn't it? You've got to sort of gradually sort of bring them down to the right level. I suspect that Frontier probably didn't think about the possible PR sort of level of it. To me, the running costs in the beta was just a detail.
Yeah, exactly.
That kind of, it's a beta, so it's going to change. That's the whole point of betas. And they've said, in fact, that they're going to make further changes based on the feedback that's come from the beta. They haven't necessarily announced all of them yet. So kind of let's hope that's the case. Just to sort of, because we're talking about faults on beta week 1, CQC in-game queuing, I thought that's brilliant, because that finally brings it into the game.
Yeah,
Good. And the other thing that we don't know from the beta is customizations, because they're excluded from the beta. And I know Cohen Leth and Burr have been going around sniffing around the shipyards looking to see what different variations there might be. But that's in itself something that's quite interesting that we'll hopefully find out about in the next beta.
Absolutely.
Kai, Trax?
Okay. So this is where we get to the low point in my roller coaster ride of emotions. Day 1 of beta 1, I was just super unhappy with the massive inflation in the upkeep costs. However, and I stated so on the forums when they asked for feedback, I was like, this is just way too high. However, to Alec Turner's point that he just elaborated on, that's the whole part of the system. They put it out, they make tweaks, they make adjustments with the goal of making the best possible product in June. And as I stated on our show at the time, I would absolutely not buy a fleet carrier based on those costs and the setup that it had at the time. But I was very confident that it would get adjusted and that a fleet carrier would be something that I would be purchasing come June. And I feel like that sort of has borne out. So I'm very happy on that. I didn't want to leave it feeling salty, but at that moment I was at my saltiest point in this process.
As for me, I don't think I was all that disappointed. I don't think the thought even crossed my mind that those prices were going to stay in place. They were obviously way too high. I think it's a super interesting point that mechanically you can force better feedback. That's really interesting that I'm hearing just now. I kind of came in today with this back in my mind, kind of cheeky, not really honest, but just sort of a funny thought that they intentionally throw things way off in order to make us feel like we're changing it by a lot. And I almost felt like the community, in quotes, may have forced that to happen by some past events that had the name Open Letter on them. It was sort of like, you guys want a beta that really gets the job done, here you go. Let's give them some things that they can change. I think what you guys were saying earlier about it actually really does generate more and better feedback by throwing it off by quite a lot, just to make us play through that. That's a much better answer, I think, to that. But I actually wasn't that upset when it first came out. It was a few days later, for some reason. I think I was sort of letting it get me down over time, and I had to get back into the game. I got back onto my stream doing the expedition and actually playing the game I love, and then I was like, oh yeah, now I remember what's really going on in here. It has nothing to do with wild inflation of fleet carrier prices. It's space. And then I felt a lot better.
Oh yeah, that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Astro, you had something?
Yeah, it just I mean, I think with most of what they came out with in the first week of the beta was really good. I think the fleet carriers was 90% there, and there was just some minor tweaking of numbers. Unfortunately, when they put up those high numbers, and I think you guys might be right that maybe this was an intentional thing to kind of start high and then work your way down. But it also meant that they were pretty much only getting feedback on that one thing. Nobody was giving feedback on anything else. There was a little bit on regarding exploration, but the sole focus, all the discussions were just on upkeep. Nothing else was really being discussed at that point. So I don't know if I would say that they wouldn't say they wasted, but they at least focused the first week of the beta very much on the upkeep. And now that they turned it down to what I would consider a reasonable level, someone commented that maybe they're going to turn it back up again later. Maybe not to the levels we had in week 1, but I think that's a dangerous move. I think that's going to give a lot of kickback from the community. I mean, it's basically saying, oh, look how nice it could have been, and everybody's happy with most of the people is happy with the prices as they are now, and then suddenly take that away again. The whole thing's just going to kick back, and the whole discussion is just going to be upkeep only again.
Seems right.
So let's go back around, because what I want to know now is what your thoughts on the
you're
changes.
skipping somebody again, Ty. We want to hear your thoughts.
You thought you were going to get away, huh?
I'm literally going to do that every time. I would not have bought one the way the upkeep was. I could not have afforded one long term. I would have had it for about 6-9 months, and then I would have not have been able to afford it after that. So, yeah, that's what I think the upkeep changes make to where I can have one pretty much for forever now, even if I don't ever make any more money in the game. So I'm happy with the changes. But let's go back around and talk about the changes they announced Wednesday. Would you buy one in that state? What do you think would be your biggest, or what is your biggest surprise change on the list? What are some changes you noticed that no one is talking about, like some stealth changes? We'll go back around to Alec.
Okay, well, I mean, the cost thing, like I said, I can't afford one anyway, so it's kind of a moot point. I was really pleased to see the numbers drop in that announcement, because, you know, to be honest, I was just getting depressed reading all the feedback on the forums and hearing, you know, basically every streamer under the sun here just being upset. I just thought, oh, thank God, at least we can stop hearing all this mess. It really was seriously getting me down and making me
exhausting, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was making me hate the game, which is awful. There were some amazing things for me in that post. I thought, I mean, the two real standouts for me were the just like that universal car graphics as an optional service. Bang, there it was. I was kind of surprised that they would just cave in so easily and just go, oh, go on then. So that was sort of amazing. And the change in jump times was extraordinary. I forget who I'd heard. I'd heard somebody saying that they believed there were deep technical reasons why you needed an hour like cooldown.
All of us.
That might have been me. Yeah.
Well, okay. Well,
me.
I bought that hook, line, and sinker. It seemed so reasonable. And then to just suddenly go from like 1 hour to 5 minutes, and it was wow.
15 and 5 to be clear.
Yeah, 15 on school. Yeah, it was amazing. So those were the two standout things for me, I think, which is those two massive changes coming straight in.
So my Discord just crashed, so I don't know what's going on. Can y'all still hear me?
Sure, yeah.
we
I hear you just fine.
Yeah, I can't see any text. It's just spinning. So
I will help you if you like until you get back up.
Yeah.
All right. So Alex.
So yeah, Alex done. We go to Burp.
Yeah, I'm done.
Yeah. So well, my initial reaction when we were on tenterhooks all morning, really, weren't we?
Yeah.
Sitting there because we knew they were going to announce something, obviously, as everyone did, but we didn't know what was coming. And you always, with Frontier, love their hearts, you're always a little bit nervous as to what you're going to get. And yeah, when they first announced it, we took a real quick run through, and there were numbers like 80%, 90% reductions being dropped into the forum post all over the place. And my initial reaction was I PM'd Stephen Benedetti and Bruce and called them cheeky little sausages because it was just the numbers just blew me out of my chair. They were without any kind of serious practical experience of those numbers at that point. I was very, very pleased to see that they'd gone. I was terrified, I suppose, that we were going to get 10% reductions and things like that all over the place. There were going to be like little tweaks and whatever, and it would have been hard to defend that, I think, to say the least. So yeah, so when I saw that, I was very, very pleased.
I think we both kind of said that it was kind of critical what they did. That was their real critical move. It was one thing what came out on week 1, but what they then did to address the community concerns after that was really, really crucial. And I think kind of felt that at least they did nail that and appropriately react. But I have to say, I do agree with Alec. I think the roller coaster, absolute, sort that came out the first week, it was just exhausting. And I think I would have rather not gone through it quite so severely.
Yeah.
But ultimately, pleased at least they did seem to get it right on that announcement. Because if they hadn't got it right on that one, then yeah, it would have been fun.
It would have been tough. It would have been very tough. Yeah. I mean, certainly, as far as sort of would I buy one in the state that they're in at the moment? Absolutely, I'll be buying one. Yeah, I do still think they've got some tweaks to be made, and there's still some work to be done, which is obviously what Beta 2's all about. And I think Ree, you're kind of at the point where you're sort of considering picking one up as well, aren't you?
They're moving in the right direction, but they still change.
I mean, for Ree to be turning round, because for Ree plays the game in a very, very different way to everybody else. For Ree to be turning around and going, actually, I think I might have a carrier, because you can find some use for one, can't you? We think anyway.
Yeah,
so,
nice.
So yeah, and also I think she saw pink engine trails as well, which might have been a big selling point. So
or green.
Or green, yeah. So I mean, certainly in the state that they're in at the moment, absolutely, I would buy one. I still think there's some work to be done. As I said, I'm not a massive fan of the decommissioning issue. I'm sure we'll come on to that later. The biggest surprise, I think, other than sort of Frontier had stepped up with a great big knife and gone, there you go. The biggest surprise in all the changes for me, we literally left my chin on the floor, was the jump timer issue. I know, as Alex said, that was, if anything, I think they might have got a bit too far.
Yeah, we can't say.
I don't want to seem ungrateful or anything, but what are you doing? that really blew me away. What is it, like a 15-minute wind up and a 5-minute cool down, something like that at the moment?
Yeah.
Burr, when you go to the ATM machine to take out $30 and it spits out $300, just take it and walk away quickly.
Just shut up. Yeah, just shut up and walk away.
Enough said.
So I mean, certainly, from a completely selfish point of view, when it comes to filming and things like that, which is obviously what we spend a lot of our time doing, that's brilliant. It's because we can just film carriers jumping in and out all day. So that was a massive surprise. I was really pleased to see that, and also just the fact that it was an opportunity for, and maybe that's why they did it, as we said earlier on. I don't know, but it was an opportunity for FDev to go, okay, we're listening, here you go. So that was a nice surprise. I don't think I really noticed any stealth fixes. I'm not a notice details kind of guy.
You did. You mentioned one earlier, just 20 minutes ago when we were talking.
Yeah, but
cover it.
My old man addled brain, I'm not sure if I'm right, but it feels like when you're transferring money between yourself and the carrier, when you use the button to go up or down. See, I didn't even notice there's a billion button, isn't there? But I didn't even notice that. But when you use the plus and minus, it feels like that accelerates a lot quicker. So you can get money into the carrier a lot quicker, and consequently out of the carrier a lot quicker. But that was a I think I saw that, but I could be wrong. If anyone else has seen that, I'd be interested to know if they think they saw that. But
yeah, you did.
So yeah.
Astro, what you think, man?
I mean, right now I think the fleet carriers are like 99% there. There are definitely still some things I would like to see being changed, but if they released in the state they are right now, it would be okay. Again, there are definitely some things that I would like to see changed, but I think I think it would be okay. The biggest surprise for me was the introduction of cartographics, because I thought they must have left that out for a reason. And
Right.
me and Kai was discussing this back and forth, like there must be a reason why they didn't include that. That's such an obvious thing now that they're already so close to being a station. Why wouldn't they do that? So I thought they must have some reason behind it. And then they just like completely turn around and say, yeah, okay, here you go, here's cartographic. That really surprised me. The prices, I was half expecting that they would be coming down, and they pretty much hit it spot on where I thought they would be in terms of total upkeep for all the services.
Commander Plater.
Yeah, obviously when we saw the announcement, I think I just gave out this ridiculous sigh of relief, turned around to my wife who's working from home, and just went, "Oh, thank God for that." She's like, "What?" And then I had to go and explain everything through to her again. And bear in mind, she sits there and when I was there and I spoke about it, and initially when the prices were what they were, I was like, I just don't get it. I'd just be sitting there with my hands on my face going, I don't get it. And then it was dropped. And it was just like, I was like, oh, thanks for that. And it was just brilliant. They've, no matter what's happened, whether it was intentional or not, they have got it in a much more reasonable state. It was great to see that they're adding the universe cartographics on. Logically, I can see why it's coming in beta 2. Especially considering the reasons that Frontier had given why they weren't going to have universe cartographics in the first place, where it's, we want explorers to come back, or one of the pillars of exploration is you come back to the bubble with your data, and the Gnosis has universe cartographics, so maybe that's not true. And so there was a couple of things like that, and then we pushed back and we challenged, and Frontier have to now design that. It's not in the UI as it is, so they have to design it. So it obviously makes sense why they're leaving it for that long before they put it into the next beta. So as it stands, I would probably buy one. Would I have it fully kitted out with absolutely everything? Probably not. There's a couple of facilities that I just wouldn't bother with. Like the secure trading, forget that. Don't need it. Not for me. I don't want to buy illegal goods and then have to try and sell them somewhere. It doesn't make a lot of sense to me. But there's a real opportunity now to actually have some gameplay and engage with other commanders. Where you set your carrier up, you have an option at last, to do something different, and that's what I think carriers do offer. So I think, I would definitely buy one. Definitely, yeah.
I'm picturing Mrs. Plater as you explain to her the list of reasons why, like, oh, thank God. And she just kind of pats your head and puts a tea down on the table and goes, "That's lovely, dear," and walks away.
Now she does game. She does game as well. She plays Star Wars: The Old Republic, and she's been playing The Sims quite a bit and stuff. So she does play games. She does understand when things are misbalanced or that doesn't make a lot of sense. That, and I listen to her talk about her work, and I don't understand any of it. So that's what we call a functioning relationship.
There you go.
Right on.
Beautiful.
Reese says a bunch of rubbish I never listen to.
Oh, she's right there, right?
Wait for it. Yep.
She's about to put you down on a world with a honky donk.
Sidebar here, Rini, your fleet carrier must be named the Honky Donk, but I will also accept the Wonky Donkey. But anyway, Commander Witherspoon.
Righty, possibly slightly unpopularly, I would say. I was one of these people who was actually quite pleased that there wasn't a universal cartographics to start with, because one of the gameplay loops that I certainly participate in is the kind of going out sort of and spending a year out in the black somewhere, and then having that sort of risk reward sort of balance gradually shifting. Do you keep going, or do you get back to the bubble and sort of cash in sort of all the exploration discoveries you've made so far? There's people like the Mission Farsight, who's been 4 years out in the black. It's going to be a bit embarrassing if he sort of is jumping away sort of somewhere in the depths of space, and he suddenly jumps into a system that's got a fleet carrier in it. And it's going to be, well, am I going to pretend this fleet carrier is not here and not caching my data?
Oh, I get you. Yeah.
However, sort of listening to Dav Stott on Live Radio a few weeks back, his viewpoint was that universal character graphics simply wasn't included initially because they wanted to get a subset of features into the beta, see how people like them, and if they seem popular, then they'd add more sort of features and functionality into the fleet carriers. Because people have asked for universal character graphics, they're fast tracking that one, and they're going to get into the beta before release rather than waiting until afterwards. That's fine. I'm one of these people who can't afford a fleet carrier. I'm never likely to be able to afford a fleet carrier. But at the same time, I don't think that everyone in the galaxy actually needs to own a fleet carrier for them to be a useful thing to have. Because, there is definitely a case that there's going to be people who have fleet carriers and who get their friends to come along with them. And to be honest, during the beta, I've been a bit of a hobo. I've been kind of keeping an eye out for fleet carriers that were about to jump out, and then hopping aboard sort of to get a free lift. And the reduction in the jump preparation time actually means that I need to be a lot more on the ball for that. Because if there's, say, sort of 20 or 30 fleet carriers, I need to keep an eye on all of them and be able to get to them within 15 minutes, or else I could miss my ride. So 15 minutes is fairly low, I reckon. But obviously, if you're a fleet carrier owner, you're not going to complain about it. And I guess I just need to take my chances on getting on the ride.
Oh, sorry, I just realized, do you think people will make like a new bubble, like Sol to Colonia speed run, where they just have carriers sitting at 500 interval, one carrier jumping to the next that's already spooling up, so one can just jump off, go to the next one that just 500.
Oh, wow.
Oh, nice.
Yes.
I would actually like to see that.
Sold to Colonia in 30 minutes.
Yeah, something like that. Like, get on the Sol to. I mean, if you had enough commanders doing that, you could actually make a fast track between Sol and Colonia, where people could just go from one carrier to the next and just get there in no time.
That's a lot of tritium.
It is.
Well, maybe not so anymore.
Alec, you had something you wanted to chime in about the UC?
Well, kind of, yeah. It's more of a question for the group, actually, because I'm just curious. Pete's not alone there in not being entirely happy about the universal card graphics. I get that. I also have heard quite a few people not being entirely happy about the jump range thing either. I think it makes it too easy to just go flitting around the galaxy. But I'm curious, on the universal cartographics, there is a halfway measure, which is really nice, but obviously a lot harder to code, which is some idea of data storage so that you come back to your fleet carrier, you drop off your data, but you don't get the cache, you don't get the first discovery, and at some point in the future, you've got to take your fleet carrier back to the bubble to hand that data in. That seems like a really nice solution, but obviously it takes time for Frontier to code that. Does anyone here in the room think they might still do that if they have time to?
I would love to see that happen just myself, because I think it would be it would kind of be a neat thing where you can like add a level of gameplay for those people like Wotherspoon who say like, I don't want to do it this way. That adds sort of a tool that they can choose to use or choose not to use as just a sort of a backup, and then whatever. But that's a lot more work on Frontier to do.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
This was something we were kind of postulating about on one of our recent podcasts, and it does leave intact or more intact the essential danger of exploration in the first place, or at least a big part of it, right, is that nothing gets sold until the end. And deleting that is kind of questionable. I agree. And storing the data might be a better way to do that. But yeah, it is coding where otherwise no coding would be needed, right? It's universal cartographics as it stands already exists. So I don't know. Hard to say. I don't really know what it's like over there in that office.
Astro?
So I think the problem is that if you take data storage, you remove that loop of having you still remove the loop of having the oh, I hope I can make it back in time kind of thing. Because I'll make it back without getting my ship destroyed, because it's stored on a fleet carrier where it's a lot more safe, because you're not going to randomly crash your fleet carrier into the side of a planet. And also that, how would you then make that work in a multiplayer setup? I mean, if it's sensible for the owner can come, they can store data. But what if I come as a visitor to a fleet carrier somewhere out in the middle of nowhere, and I say, okay, can I then just store my data and I just have to wait for the owner of that fleet carrier to move that thing back, or do I have to buy it off them? And how is that then different from at least the visitor's point of view? How is that then different from normal cartographic if you just sell your data? The only difference is that the owner then just has to go and cash in.
I think I was presuming that the owner of the data would need to retrieve it later and cache it in themselves. Like the fleet carrier owner would just be a storage. The fleet carrier owner wouldn't necessarily be able to do anything. Sort of like if a visitor stores modules on a fleet carrier.
Yeah, but that then defies the whole purpose of it, because if you have like this, there's been a discussion of this like deep space support array with like fleet carriers scattered across the galaxy people can go to. But if you can't get rid of your data if they're never gonna go back to a bubble or back to a station, if they're just gonna stay there forever, well, then there's no point in you storing your data there, other than that you can come back, pick it up when you want to go back.
Yeah, it's not great.
No,
it's not a great idea.
It would have been a okay compromise if Frontier absolutely didn't want universal cartography on the ships, on the fleet carriers, but it seems that they're not. I mean, that they don't mind that it's there, so I would definitely think that full-on UC is a better option.
Agreed.
Yeah. Burr, did Burr have a thought on that too?
Yeah, not a massive comment to make. Just off the back that I think now that they've particularly now that they've said they're putting universal cartographics on carriers, I don't think we'll see a change to that system and how that works. I think it's an easy. To be honest, it was probably on the way anyway, in my humble opinion, and it's just a box check for them, and it would cost probably a couple of £1,000 to change it. So why would they really?
Yeah. Completely agree.
Commander Plater.
Yeah, I'm kind of with Burr on that one. I think now it's been announced that it's going in, it will go in, and it will go in and function as they've said, just like a normal universal cartographics. There's a lot of issues with the idea of storing your data on someone else's carrier. What happens if it gets decommissioned? Or when it's gone, isn't it? Or, it's that kind of stuff a little bit like that. And I mean, from a law point of view, if you can get your, I'm going to mention Galnet, and I'm highly aware there's been nothing on Galnet for months, but if you can get your Galnet transmission anywhere in the galaxy, why couldn't you type beam back data from a carrier? If you wanted to justify it yourself, you're like, oh yeah, we'll do that then. You just do like laser comm straight fire, jump. Yeah, we obviously can do that. So I think that's my kind of thoughts on that. But yeah, I don't see it changing. I do see it as initially they wanted people to come back, and everyone's like, how can explorers upkeep a carrier out when they're exploring without preloading? The answer is, well, no, they couldn't. So now at least there's that option.
Kind of from my point of view, I think that there wasn't much for explorers without a UC for fleet carriers, and I think that I don't know what else you could have added to the fleet carrier to make them useful for exploration. Now, kind of that being said, I'm gonna steal your thunder a little bit here, Bird. You just linked a picture of the the DSSA, how they're gonna put fleet carriers all over in every sector of the galaxy. Is that right?
That's right. It's the fleet comm guys that are working on that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So it looks like every place in the galaxy will have a place where you can sell data, you can rearm, repair, which all this means to me is that I have a better chance of taking my vet out exploring. So
Ty's in favor of it.
Right on.
No, in all seriousness, it's a little scary when you start talking about, because I'm concerned about the shrinking of the galaxy, because one of the things I love about this game is the sheer feeling of size, and I'm a little worried about the feeling of, well, there's a lot less danger there in the shrinking of the galaxy. Because I think about when you get back to World of Warcraft, when they added in flying, as much as I loved it, this huge gigantic world kind of shrunk down on everything else. So yeah,
You know, to kind of, so I think the main thread that we're on right now was like what was the most surprising thing, and I personally didn't think changes to jump range or fuel consumption were coming at all. That surprised me completely out of the blue.
Yeah, that's
And I
true.
think because of what you said, like I did not think that the fleet carriers were intended or ever going to be a fast travel device. I thought they were going to be something that if you wanted to take the time, you could put it someplace far away, but it's going to take a lot of time and resources. So
Yeah,
I was really
agreed.
surprised to see that change at all.
No, I completely agree with that. And on
Yeah.
on Ty's point of sort of the world shrinking, this is not World of Warcraft where you have 45 zones and now you can kind of move about them without sort of any repercussions or whatever. There are 420 whatever billion zones or whatever to deal with here. This is not fast travel. This is just the ability to support you where you go.
Even
Bert,
still with the changes, you still feel that way.
100%.
Bert,
Because
you had something?
Yeah, all I was going to say was a couple of things really. I don't think the I hear you on the universe or the galaxy shrinking thing. I don't I know carriers have got a massive range on them, but my gut feeling is that the the actual act of having to move them and then fuel them up and then move them and then fuel them up and then paying for it. I think again, it's a gut feeling, but I just think that'll just be too much of a pain when you can just jump into your Anaconda and go boom, 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 boom. Oh, right, that's the thing I wanted to look at. I don't know. I'm not an explorer at heart. So, and the other point I was going to make was great, but I can't remember it. So,
Well, good point then.
yeah.
Kai, I cut you off due to lag issue. You want to hop back in? Sorry, man.
no worries. Just like I said, so it would be different if every time you jumped in your fleet carrier every 20 minutes, they said like, well, your fleet carrier has a special observation array, and every zone within 50 light years in every direction, it just sort of mapped it out or whatever. That would be shrinking the galaxy for sure, and that would really, really, really make me unhappy as a player of the game. But as it stands now, you're not having any. You can jump. You can set your fleet carrier. Well, we'll get to this in a minute, but you could theoretically, once they get that part fixed, set your fleet carrier and say, okay, I'm gonna go to bed now and wake up and then go to work, and then when I get home from work, my fleet carrier will be in Colonia, and at that point you may have traveled from Ross 310 to Colonia, but you haven't mapped a single system, you haven't done anything, you haven't interacted in any way with any of those systems. All the fleet carrier is doing is giving you a support tool that can aid you in your exploration. You still have to get out and get in your ship and get out there and interact with the galaxy in order to do anything meaningfully. And that's beautiful, I think.
While we're here, Kai, you want to talk about the Wednesday changes and all that?
Sure, absolutely. So, okay, the first thing was, what are our thoughts on the changes announced? Upkeep cost got slashed. That was amazing. 10 weeks. They say up from 4, but let's be honest, if you were paying attention, it's up from 3 before you get the warning on the decommission. That's amazing. Upfront cost lowered. Didn't even ask for it, but cool. All right. Jump times slashed. Didn't even think about it, but cool. That's awesome. And then for beta 2, universal cartographics added. Amazing. Tritium. And it says, to be very clear, it says at least 2 times more effective. So I'm thinking that that's going to end up being maybe 2.5 to 3 times, but even if it's just at 2 point, that's amazing. So my thoughts are bravo, bravo, bravo. Would you buy one in this state? Absolutely, unquestionably. I'm so excited. The biggest surprise, honestly, to me, the biggest surprise isn't one particular thing. It's the scope. It's the massive scope of this, in that they did not make incremental change on any of these subjects. They were just like, all right, what would make everybody like, okay, you have a Volkswagen. we're going to upgrade you to a Ferrari for free. Like every step of the way of this process, they either made a change on something we weren't even asking for one on, or they made a change that was massive. So that was my surprise is just the scope of it. As far as the stealth fixes, I'm with Burr. I noticed that when you click on the adding money, it goes much faster. And also they put a transfer all button. So if you want to just put 20 billion, if you want to put, I've got 25.5 billion sitting around. I'm just going to click on the transfer all to put 25 billion into the carrier wallet and then transfer $1 billion back into my personal wallet and call it good. That's way better. And I guess just my overall thoughts on these changes are, if you notice, when we just did the last round of questions where we asked every last person, hey, how do you feel on this? Everybody, their voice kind of went down a little. They were like, well, I was hopeful that things would get better, but it's whatever. And then when you asked this round of question, everybody was like, all right. And they were like super, super excited to say their bit, because I feel like it's almost like all of us had driven through a construction site that for some reason was just pouring out salt, and our entire car was just dusted in salt, like everywhere. It just looked like a ghost car. And then this round of changes was like driving through a car wash and coming out perfectly clean on the other side, feeling super happy. That's my feelings.
That's
Wallace, you had something?
Yeah, that's really interesting, because apart from universal cartographics, virtually everything that was announced in this change was basically just changes on a spreadsheet.
Yeah.
So it's just adjusting a few figures here and there, and it's made that much difference to the perception of what they've coded. In terms of coding changes, there's nothing there. All they've done is just adjusted a few figures, and it's made that much difference.
Yeah,
agree.
From
Completely.
It's terrible to it's pretty good.
Yeah,
that's fascinating.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Trax, I don't think we ever got your opinion on a.
Oh, I snuck it in there.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, that my roller coaster has swung back up. Yeah, I feel this is where it was probably gonna end up, and most of it was cost. Like Witherspoon was just saying, it's just monies essentially, and cartographics, I guess. But that was the thing, and it was funny how it was, the energy was feeding off itself, because it was really just that one overarching idea is the cost of the whole thing. So yeah, big effect.
So I've actually already kind of commented here on things. I'm going to spin back around to the next thing I want to ask is, what changes would you still like to see for June before we actually get to the June launch? What do you want to see changed, Alec?
Yeah, okay. I've got a few sort of odd ones, because I think I'll let most people cover. I think maybe the more obvious ones. I'd really like to see, how do we still have them, the kind of bounty logs where you can see who's got the highest bounty at any given station, and these are real players, not just NPCs.
Oh, so, on station services?
Yeah. So I'd love to see logs on a fleet carrier of who's landed at your fleet carrier. Wouldn't it be awesome to see that Obsidian Amp landed at your fleet carrier last week? Or I think that would be cool. I also, I know there's problems with this. I'd love to be able to set a message of the day in the same way that you can for a squad.
Yes.
So I mean, I know there's moderation issues. You could post whatever bit of horrendous propaganda you want, or swearing on, anyway. But they already allow it for squadrons. I think it'd be great, because, and we'll get onto this later maybe, but when you're starting to think about how you want to use fleet carriers, I think if you can, well, we probably will get onto this, but being able to put messages on your fleet carrier opens up, I think, the possibility of using fleet carriers for role play greatly. So I'd love to see that. Other than that, maybe I'll let Kai or Astro talk on this. I really like the idea of passive refueling. I still kind of like that for the explorers, but maybe you want to talk about that. What else have I got? And just just one, I suppose, that surprised me a little bit is the whole thing of where you buy the stuff to fill your outfitting or your shipyard, your packs of stuff. It comes in packs, right? You buy a pack of whatever. Am I right in thinking that that's at zero discount? That is literally at face value price. So
Yes.
that's crazy, isn't it? I don't get it.
Yes.
True.
It makes them. It unfortunately it makes both ship selling and module selling a little useless, because there's no way why people would go and buy a module or a ship off a fleet carrier if they could get it cheaper at a station, unless it would be sold in deep space.
Yeah, because here's the thing, actually, and I suppose I did miss the chance to say this right back at question 1 and thoughts on fleet carriers. One of the things that did surprise me about the initial announcement of fleet carriers was that it did seem like they'd found a potential purpose for them, which was like your own sort of market trade thing, where you could, if you could get the levels just right, and you put your fleet carrier in just the right price, you might be able to make a profit. And that doesn't seem to be set up to work very well like that. I mean, certainly not with outfitting and shipyard. Anyway, it just seems a bit crazy that you can't make a profit on those things.
I saw someone suggesting that you could sell pre-fitted ships. So you could basically take a ship with all the modules and you could sell them like as a package. So you could basically say, hey,
nice.
I have a fully fitted mining ship. You could just go pick it up and you're ready to go.
Yeah,
I think that would have use out in the black as well, if you haven't brought a mining ship with you or something. But it's difficult to see in the bubble in particular why on earth you would go to a carrier to buy any ship, really.
Well, and to that use case out in the black, the problem that you have there is, okay, I've sold 9 ships, business closed forever.
Yeah, you can't restock.
Alec,
Quick,
before we leave Alec, I want to come back and ask you a pointed question. I think you left something out there, my friend. Is there anything you would like to ask Frontier to put back onto the station services menu as a Buckyball Race Club person?
Yeah. Okay, so I didn't say this one in the forums because there's about 1 million players who would go, it's fine. Yeah, so when they changed station services, they removed the clock and they removed the date from the station services screen. Now, I know we still have a clock in the top right-hand corner of the ship HUD, but often, and I have many screenshots that will show this, that's obscured either by bits of the cockpit or lighting from outside, and you literally cannot read it, or you can't read all of it. In order to do our races, we absolutely rely on that clock. That is your start time, that is your finish time. If we don't have that clock on the HUD, on the station services, then it's going to be a pain in the ass. But I feel cheeky asking it because there's about 20 of us that care about that.
Not
if
at
there's
all.
20, that means you got to be louder about it.
Not at all. That's why I wasn't gonna let you. I wasn't gonna let you go without addressing it. You need the date stamp and time stamp back on there, please.
But the date is less important. The only thing with the date is it stops people cheating at something like the Sagittarius A-Star run. But it would have to be a pretty elaborate cheat. So put the time, please. Yeah, can we have the time back, please?
All right, sorry.
Burp Pit, changes you want to see before or with June?
Well, without having crunched any numbers or done any clever thinking about it at all, it strikes me as odd, at least, that you can't move tritium from your hold directly into the carrier fuel tank.
Yes.
Now, whether that pays into the issue of making the galaxy feel smaller, I suppose, is a discussion. But it certainly annoys the hell out of me. So I'd like to, I think there's a discussion around that. There is an elephant in the room. I'll get to that in a minute. The ability to stand down and restart facilities while you're away from an administration system, is that still a thing? My understanding is that you can't stand down a facility if you're not in that feels like a bug.
It
Does
must
anyone
be.
else think that's a bug? Surely.
A, it feels like a bug, and B, when they debuted it on April 2nd, they showed that when you do stand down, you go to a 10% cost, and now it's at 50.
So that could easily be limitations intended for testing, as we've mentioned before about some other features, right? Just something they clicked off for the sake of beta.
Okay. So,
but to be clear, you're saying it should be a thing.
You should absolutely be able to stand down facilities when you're not in an administration system. Yes, because again, I don't intend to use mine for exploration. But if you're moving your carrier out to God alone knows where, and you decide you want to, bring down the cost for a month or two or whatever, or surely you've got, it just makes it completely impractical in that regard. Otherwise, so and the tritium thing as well. If you've got to be at your carrier in order to transfer fuel from the cargo hold to the tank, which means you can't effectively move or administer your carrier from a distance and administer it from a distance. So that just doesn't feel right to me. So I think there's a discussion there. However, definitely the elephant in the room is I'm really not comfortable with the decommissioning thing. On the advent of not keeping up with your debts, it as I think I've said before, it feels, to me, it feels unnecessarily punitive and a little bit mean-spirited when I understand completely that they want to clear trash carriers out of the galaxy, and I'm all for it. That's absolutely fine. But I think I hate to use the word nice, but I think there's a nicer way of doing it than just taking away people's carriers. I think you could easily, it would surely be not that different to just mothball it, dry dock it, and if that player then becomes active again and comes back in and wants to restart their carrier and pay a small fee to administer a electric shock to their crew to get them back and working again, I think that would be a reasonable compromise. But just taking away a $10 billion asset just like that and charging you a bunch of money for it just seems a little bit nasty, really.
Question: Are these important to get out for the next beta, or are they just important to get in June? Did these things be testing out at all? Is it really important you see it for the next beta in May, or is that really a June thing?
Are you asking me, or?
Yeah, just in general, really, yeah.
For me, certainly by June. I'm not too bothered if they're not in the next beta, as long as I'd like Frontier to have a discussion with us about that and say we're thinking of doing this. Whether what Frontier's like, whether that's going to happen or not is another matter. But that's what I'd like to see.
Responding to Rainey real quick, I actually kind of think it's important that they do it sooner rather than later, and here's
People
why.
know it's coming.
Yeah, here's why. Because just as Alec pointed out, them changing the upkeep costs sort of removed the tension from the room and allowed people to talk more about the other things. Where removing I agree with Burr 100%. The decommissioning is the biggest single problem left that people are focusing salt on. And if you get rid of it, the sooner the better, because then it allows people to have constructive conversations about sort of more meaningful aspects.
Yeah, I suppose what's left to be tweaked. I mean, in that vein, then being a sort of explorer, all I'm going to do is be filming and exploring. That's all I'm ever probably going to be doing. Please, can I have a shipyard so that my fleet carrier is actually a fleet carrier when I start? Whether that but they tell me about that sooner rather than later. Yeah, I know it's not for everyone, but I just think it kind of is not quite advertised right. If it's a fleet carrier, I want to be able to put my fleet in it straight away and not have to buy that as a module. Either have no modules in from the start, or start with that one default and then let us build up from there. I'd like, for me personally.
It kind of feels like a US aircraft carrier at the moment that can't carry any aircraft, but it's got a gift shop.
I can carry everyone else's, but I just can't carry mine.
So yeah.
Can I just sort of ask about that though? Because presumably, if you have a shipyard, that's going to take away from your 25,000 ton capacity straight away. So having it optional does have a benefit that someone who really doesn't care can fit more tons of cargo in.
That's a valid point.
In that case, then why? Surely it's a more level playing field for all of us to start with nothing. Just make every
agreed
module built in so that everybody can. If we're supposed to be able to tailor these, which is where the whole shift has gone from these sort of modules that we had before, the support ships, they've gone. These are all to be tailored for exactly how we want it. Well, let me do that from scratch and let everybody do that from scratch. Don't put anything in as default. Surely that's the more logical way to go then.
I'd vote for that in a heartbeat, actually, that you just buy a skeleton carrier and then
fit it out
and
as
then
you see
it
fit.
exactly as you want it. Because again, looking just at our scenario here, Re's got absolutely no use for a commodity market. I
Then
don't
what's
think.
Well,
boom is
so the
fair point.
tritium depot you have to have because that's your fuel tank. So that's
Yeah,
not
yeah, yeah.
really
Of course.
optional. But I guess what we're saying here would be what Ree is suggesting is strip out the market because that's a different thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, completely.
Make
Anything
it a
that's
blank,
Oh, well,
as
wait,
blank
wait,
slate
wait,
as
wait.
possible.
Kai, why? Why do you have to have the tritium? Why can't I install the tritium deposit and then use it? And then once I have my fleet carrier where I want, let's say part of a deep space network, then just say, remove that deposit and we're not going to move, like suspend it.
I just think as far as why, if you're installing or uninstalling. Now we're talking. There's a difference between suspend, unsuspend, and then install, uninstall. Install, uninstall. You can't uninstall your gas tank when you're out in the middle of nowhere because there's no facility there to handle that. You have to like remove stuff from the ship.
Yeah, that makes sense. But
do you guys think that this flipping it to be either a skeleton or having like the fleet carrier aspect of it be part of the default? I noticed a lot of the salt in the community revolved around that, even if it was just symbolically. Do you think that would have gone some way toward preventing some of that, like the fleet carrier that can't carry your fleet? I've that piqued my interest when I first heard it, and then I started hearing it repeated a lot, and I wonder if that was sort of an emotional misstep that could have prevented some of the anger.
I agree that it was sort of a rallying cry that people could make. People like to have things where they point to that they're like, well, that's absurd, and it makes a nice soundbite. But when you think about what Wotherspoon just said, it's a very, very valuable point of like, hey, look, a shipyard does take 3,000 tons of capacity off of your 25K. When you think about it, if you are that guy who's a lone trader who's like, I want a full 25,000 and I do not want to be encumbered by this, I was one of the people that was always saying, give me the shipyard built in, duh. But now that I hear that point, that's a very, very smart point that, like, for some people, they might want the freedom to have that extra 3,000 tons.
Yeah, I'm becoming convinced as well.
I think Plater wants in.
Yeah, I got some to chip in on that big time.
Come on in.
You're talking about what if the shipyard was a standard, and it would take up space. If it was standard, it wouldn't. The same way the tritium deposit doesn't. It just wouldn't take up that space because it would be our standard. You get penalized for optional extras, but if someone slaps something down in front of you and says, this is it, you don't know any different. So
you're saying that it should have the shipyard and the 25K?
Yeah, because that
sold.
25K is again an arbitrary number. The same way, even if they were to say, right, here you go, here it is, our standard, we put the shipyard in there, it now only does 22.
You, sir, have just convinced me.
Because at this point, if you said, now it has 22, we know that before it had 25. So there becomes a psychological problem. It's the same way that it's much easier to give people something for free than take something away. And that's kind of what would have to happen. So if it was to be standard, and honestly, I think that, you'd have maybe your shipyard as is, you can only store ships with it until you buy a stock. So it is just storage at that point. So that's okay. I think that would be perfectly fine, and I think that would be the right direction to go for a quick and easy win, because again, it's numbers on a spreadsheet, which, as we know, Frontier are very capable of changing, and it's a very easy change for anyone to make. So I think that would be the correct direction to go with that. And I don't want to say any more about other changes I want to go for, because I know Astro is actually next. So
Commander Plater for president.
President of
$1 a year.
I think actually, Rini, when you first, at least according to the chat.
Small point on that is something that we were discussing here, and I know that Burr's discussing on stream at the minute with his crowd, which we thought very much in Plater's camp, that you have a standard small shipyard that doesn't take anything out of your storage. even if they did a sort of a smaller version that doesn't take anything out of your storage capacity, and then if you want a bigger one, then you start perhaps that's an optional that you can have a bigger one, and that does take up space and use some of your storage up for. That was just something we were looking around here as well.
Great.
I think most of what they have done already with the services is absolutely wonderful. I love the idea of being able to enable or disable modules to customize the fleet carrier, and I just want more of it. As some of you guys have said, let's split up the shipyard so you have one for storage and one for selling. Do the same with modules, one for storing modules and one for selling. There is the whole decommission system. I think that's going to be a whole discussion on itself, but the only other major thing I have right now is around refueling. And the problem I see right now is that you are forcing explorers with a fleet carrier into a game loop that they might not enjoy. You are forcing explorers to go out and mine. If they want to move their fleet carrier, they have to fit a mining laser and they have to go out and they have to go and mine themselves some fuel. And I'm never a fan of when you force players into a game loop that they might not enjoy. It's the same thing when people want to make mining more difficult and say there should be a bigger risk. And people then suggest, well, just add a lot of NPC pirates that will come after you all the time. And I've always been like, no, because then you're suddenly forcing combat into a mining game loop. If you want to make mining more difficult, well, make the rocks do more damage when they explode or something. I don't know. Find some chances of like hidden gas deposits when you mine, the whole rock is going to explode in your face, forcing you to keep your distance. That would be cool. It would add danger to mining, but don't add another gameplay loop that people might not enjoy into an existing gameplay. And that's what they're doing right now with the fleet carriers for explorers, that they're forcing them out mining. So I would really like to see an alternative way, other than buying it on a station or mining. That's pretty much covers everybody in the bubble. But I would really like to see a third way to gather fuel. And I don't have necessarily the best or a very good solution. Me and Kai discussed it in Elite Week, I think last week. Or was it this week? I think it was last week, yeah. Where we discussed but could you have a service that would just say, well, if you park your carrier in the orbit around a planet with an ice ring, they will slowly gather fuel on its own. It's basically a service, you pay some money for it, and then it gathers fuel. Not as fast as if you went mining yourself, that would probably still have to be faster, but you could do it passively. You could passively regen your fuel and would allow explorers for another way to gather fuel. I have someone on Twitter saying passive refuel at neutron stars. Yeah, maybe. So you have to go and look for a neutron star in order to refuel. That could work too. Some way for explorers to get refueled their fleet carriers in a non-mining way, in a more explorer-friendly way. I think that would be really, really nice to see.
Yeah, that's a really good idea. So someone in our chat just said mining drones. That'd be quite cute as well.
Yeah, exactly.
Something that would consume some of your profit, or
exactly.
Just do it in the background.
Well, not for nothing, but we are paying an entire fuel department. Right. Who's to say they can't hop in some darn ships and go on out there and get some fuel?
And what the hell am I paying you people for?
This could be an optional setting too. We just postulated 2 sizes of shipyard. You could have 2 sizes of tritium centers, and one of them will passively mine.
Yep.
And maybe cost you a little more, but that's an option you can buy.
Yeah, great idea. Yeah.
Bravo.
That would be really nice.
We like.
Yeah.
Ty?
Have we lost Ty?
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 You're lighting up, but we're not hearing you. Okay, I'm gonna take over real quick, just until he comes back. Drop and come back, Ty. So looking at this, we just covered Astro, so we're on to Wotherspoon. Your thoughts?
Hey, have we covered yet the kind of edge case of people who perhaps, I don't know, work in the military or something and have to go away for periods of time? And
not been mentioned yet.
No.
Well, so it was sort of touched upon tangentially by Burr when he said that we need to look at the decommissioning thing.
Right,
Your thoughts on that?
Perhaps we need to discuss that at some point. along the route, because I kind of don't like the idea of the stasis that you've talked about, but I can see that there's a need for it. That, kind of sometimes, unfortunately, people just have lives where they can't be playing every week, and you don't want to penalize people for having real life and sort of not being able to come in and play the game every week. So the question is, how do you manage to get something in there that that's not going to kind of give an unfair advantage? Kind of like, you don't want to be able to say, okay, I'm putting my ship into stasis now, and then I'm going to leave it for 3 months and then wake it up again, and meanwhile be playing away sort of elsewhere in the game. But at the same time, you probably don't want to have the really punitive sort of loss of credits when your ship gets repossessed. So I don't know. I mean, sort of, I can't remember what you suggested, Kai, but certainly sort of the idea that you could take your fleet carrier back to one of the stations where you bought it from and say, look, can I do a can I kind of cash it in for now, get my money back, and kind of get a discount next time I want to buy a fleet carrier or something of that nature, some kind of justification for saying, like, I want to stop paying for it right now, but I want to be able to buy it back again at no penalty later.
Okay,
And there are
cool.
lots of ways of achieving that. But can I also say something that really I'd like to see for the June launch?
Sure.
Something
That's
okay.
This is the time for it. This is your round.
Okie dokie. Well, the Hunt and Truckers, who I am one of, we have a kind of thing about Hutton mugs, yeah, and kind of we do things with Hutton mugs quite a bit. That's a rare good. And one of the things that fleet carriers can't do is store rare goods, and the logic for that was described by Dav Stott as that rare goods have a specific place in the game, and the idea is that they help sort of starting out players find their way around the galaxy, explore new places, and make some credits fairly quickly early on, which is fine. But then I guess we kind of use Hutton mugs for something a bit different, like Hot Mess, where we say, let's take a Hutton mug to every station in the galaxy. And it's not about making money, it's about a kind of a big kind of community event.
They're a MacGuffin, aren't they?
Mm-hmm.
They are a MacGuffin. They are indeed, yes. And one of the things we would absolutely love to be able to do is, because with fleet carriers you can do this, you can jump straight to Hutton Orbital. You could then sort of have a load of Hutton truckers and other people loading up the fleet carrier, and then you could jump out to somewhere sort of right on the other side of the galaxy, and you could then have people unloading them again. That would be a great mechanic. At the moment, we can't do it because I don't think there's a particularly good reason. I don't think there's any real exploits. I mean, yes, you could jump 500 light years and then sell all your mugs at a significant profit, but not as much as you could get from mining, to be honest. So I don't really think it's a big deal. I'd like them to think about that again. Okay.
I didn't know you couldn't store rares, actually. That's a new one on me.
You cannot store, nor buy, nor sell them. They can't interact in any way with the fleet carriers. But you can have them in your cargo hold while you land on the fleet carrier. But Wotherspoon is exactly right. That's just an extra added hoop.
Right.
Commander Plater, you're up, bud.
Yeah, changes. I would like to see, with not only the buying and selling of ships and modules to be much easier to be profitable, but also totally modular with which modules you buy and which ships you buy. Because at the moment, you have to buy a pack, and you buy a pack of ships, and why on earth I completely stuck having to buy 2 belugas, 3 orcas, and 2 dolphins when I might not want to sell that. And it's that kind of thing. And it also with the, let me sell all of these fuel scoops. Why am I selling all of these different many fuel scoops? It's kind of actually, I don't want to have that in stock. It's my ship, it's my shop. I said this the other day, that if all I want to do is sell toilet paper, then I'm going to make money hand over fist when people need toilet paper. But I don't want to.
Wait, this
What
just
made you
in.
think of that?
Hang on, I'm going dark. Covering address, tracing. But it's that kind of thing where you should be able to specifically say supply and demand, and there is a demand for different modules out in different places, especially parked up by a ring. You might only want to sell ships that you'd be like, okay, this is good for mining. This is what someone actually wants to use. And they'd be like, hey guys, I've got a bunch of Type 9s, perfect for your low temperature diamond mining. I'm ready to go. But you can't just have that. You have to have lots of other stuff as well. And the same with the buying the different modules. And I just don't think it's quite. We've got great flexibility. I think we need to go a step further. And to me, I think there is an option to do that where even if I have to buy 25 sidewinders at a time, cool, let me buy 25 sidewinders, but don't make me buy the 30 haulers at the same time. Let me just buy the sidewinders. And also let me overstock on stuff as well, because you can only have that 25, and even when you top up, you're topping up and you don't you can't go any higher. You can only go to your maximum of that, regardless if you have space. And I would like to see that as a bit more flexibility and options wise. So, I do have that full customization that I would really like. And obviously, I know we're going to talk about it in a minute. Decommissioning. I want something changed with that, but when we all talk about it, we all talk about it. But there are many different options and great gameplay friendly ideas in there from people. But I'm trying to think, is that everything that I would want changed? I think so. It would be nice if I could timetable a couple of jumps, but not like a whole day's worth. That, and also the mentioning about the not being able to move tritium from your hold into your tritium deposit without having to first transfer it to a ship and then from your ship into there. I don't think that makes a huge amount of sense. I don't really, I don't understand quite why it's like that. And it is great having a transfer all option, but unless you have the perfect amount of tritium that you have for your cargo space, you can't do that. You can't do a transfer. Or you have to do sit there, hold the button. So yeah, I would like to see some changes there. Like I say, I do also want that click, let me type a number in. And regardless of saying it's don't want another gameplay menu coming up. You have that when you go in the galaxy map, so I don't see the issue. It's already there. I would like to think that we'd already have a number pad on, in our ships if we've got these computers that we're using.
Nice point. Yeah.
It'd be there.
Well said.
I mean, if the guy working at the fuel deposit are so dumb that they can't move from storage to fuel deposit, they have to go over a ship. Do we really want them to fly spaceships and mine for us?
Well, here's the thing. Here's the thing, Astro. That's why we have a button that says "Fire that guy." We'll get a new one in.
I get it.
Oh yeah.
No, I agree. Let's like move between cargo and fuel deposit. Yes, please.
Isn't there a bigger problem there, though, that if you're not actually docked on the fleet carrier at the time, you simply can't move tritium
Correct.
into the depot.
Yeah.
Correct.
And that's much more of an issue if you've gone off somewhere and your fleet carrier just runs out of fuel.
Yep. Yeah. That is the key heart of that whole argument that they were making. Yes.
I can understand, though, why it works the way it does, because everything in the game at the moment is about buying and selling, moving things to and from your ship, the ship that you are actually piloting. So if we want to be able to move things between two different stores within the fleet carrier, that adds a new mechanism. So
which needs to be added.
Exactly, they need to do a bit of coding to do it.
Absolutely.
The alternative, I suppose, would be to just say, let's just say there's only one tritium deposit. If you check in any tritium, it goes into the fuel. But you can still sort of buy it out if you're allowed to. You can transfer it out to your ship.
Alternatively, let the owner decide how big the tritium deposit should be. Give me a slider somewhere so I can say, do I want to allocate 1,000? Do I want to allocate 20,000 for tritium? And then tritium just goes there.
Well, there's two answers for how you handle that, and however they choose to, I don't care, but they need to pick one.
Yeah, agreed.
Option A is you tick a box that says my fuel crew has the authority to move whatever they need to accomplish the jumps I've directed them to accomplish. And option 2 is you manually allocate supplemental fuel storage from your cargo hold. Either one, I'm happy, but pick one, but fix it.
Agreed.
Kai, you want to chime in here on what you want to see before June?
Okay. Here we go. Step 1. The decommissioning process. Burr is absolutely right, and we're going to take a round on that. But that is, of the issues that are left to be fixed, honestly, that is 90% of. You've already fixed 90% of everything, and this is the 90% of the 10% that's left is right here. Number 2, absolutely agree. You need to be able to suspend, unsuspend anywhere, and you need to be able to, and that suspend rate needs to be back at the 10% that we saw on Frontier's actual video on the 2nd. Number 3, we definitely need to be able to schedule multi-jumps, and the crew, as we just said, the fuel needs to be sorted. Number 4, shipyard should be added basic. Fleet carrier that can't carry a fleet is a sad thing. Number 5, in the beta, you can see a list of all the fleet carriers on the galaxy map as a filtered option, just like you can system states. But you can only do that when you're docked. That to me feels, I pray to God that that's a bug, because
That
the whole
sounds
point
like it.
to being able to see where fleet carriers are, to me, would have immense value when you're actually out in the black and needing a place to land. When you're already landed at a station, you don't really care all that much. But I feel like that needs to be, when that goes live in June, I really, really hope that is fixed to where you can see it anywhere. You can filter for fleet carriers, and you should be able to click on it and just see the list of the icons of what services they provide. So you can say, oh, this one doesn't have cargo, or this one doesn't have restock, or this one doesn't have a shipyard, or this one does have this, or does have that. It does have advanced repair, whatever.
That does sound like a bug to me, that you can't see it when in
Yeah,
space.
it doesn't sound right. Yeah.
The date and timestamp for my buckyball brethren needs to get done, and then please, Frontier, take a balance pass at the entire ship selling, module selling process. As many people have pointed out, number 1, you need to be able to order a la carte. There's absolutely no reason why, if you have a use case that is not in any way involve, sidewinders, you get stuck buying 12 sidewinders because it comes with the pack. There's no point. Like, I would never buy a car dealership if the business model was, I buy the cars for 100% of the price and then try to sell them from the factories, try to sell them to other people. You need to be buying at a greatly reduced price in order for it to be in any way desirable for anyone to visit your fleet carrier to buy anything. That's the whole point of buying in bulk. That's the argument they gave us when they said, hey man, we're going to charge you a tax when you try to come with your 500 tons of void opals because you're selling in bulk. Well, it works both ways. You need to give us a discount on that, so that people that want to play Flying Walmart have some form of a purpose. And for people that are sort of out in the black and they're like, hey, I have a limited number of ships, I think it would be nice if there was some tick a box option to rent out a ship where Plater comes to visit me and we're going to go canyon racing on some moon, and we're both going to go in Cobras. He doesn't have a Cobra. He's in his Jumpaconda. He should be able to buy that Cobra for the full price, use it for the day while we're out racing in canyons, and then come back. And when he clicks to resell it, since we had somehow, there needs to be some mechanism where that doesn't just poof away out into the ether, but goes back into restock, so that the next day when Burr shows up and says, all right, I'm ready to teach you how to race in these canyons,
that's never going to happen.
That ship is available. We can still do that. So those are the big things. And then for little things, man, you're Frontier, you did such a phenomenal job on the whole graphics and sound around jumping a fleet carrier. Please let people see that. If I'm docked on my fleet carrier, or if all of us are docked on my fleet carrier and it's about to jump, it kicks us out of every menu we're doing anyways and locks us to a screen where we're just staring at the hangar wall. Why don't please kick it out to a external view so we all get to see the awesome job that your amazing team did in doing the whole graphics and animations for the jump process. Yeah, the changing the adding in the button for the transfer all on the money was awesome. That is very, very cool. And that's pretty much it. I'm done.
I think I was probably next to weigh in. I don't really have anything else to add besides the station menu. I really like the new station menu layout, but there was weird stuff to do with what was being like the repair all button actually does your paint too. A lot of us like to leave our paint screwed up. And so that was crummy, having to go in and repair each module individually and stuff like that. I think that's got to be like bug or something. So I'm not really worried about that staying. So that's the only other thing.
Does that
Ty, you're not broadcasting again.
So that means we reached the elephant in the room, being decommissioning.
Yeah.
So we've got...
Hold on.
Oh,
Before we get to decom here.
Okay.
Here's my off script question I want to ask you guys. So the way that Frontier handled the fleet carrier backlash, do you guys think they handled it the right way, or do you think they're setting a precedent that if people whine enough that they're going to get what they want? Alec?
Okay. I mean, how do you mean exactly? How have they handled the backlash? They, like I said, maybe they deliberately pitched things badly to get the feedback. They've got the feedback. They've changed the numbers. I don't know that they've especially handled backlash. They've done what you do in a beta. You get feedback and you tweak stuff. I don't think it's quite the same as like the open letter situation where it seems like they've caved into community pressure. This is what a beta is. They've changed some stuff based on feedback. I don't think that's the same as handling backlash.
Burpit?
Yeah, I'd agree with that. To be honest, I don't feel like there was any. I think to be honest, we were probably always going to end up in the place that we're at now, and I don't think there was any handling in inverted commas at all, really. I don't mean that in a disparaging way, but I think we were always going to end up here, and this is all part of the plan.
The plan.
Astro?
Yeah, I mean, if we just look at how they handled it after the first week, I can't see them have handled it any differently. I mean, they pretty much gave people most of what of what was being asked for. So, I mean, I'm not complaining. I think it was handled quite well. I would just have wished they would have made these announcements earlier. I mean, it's just something like, yes, we are aware of the upkeeps. We are looking into it. That would have put a lid on the discussion, I think, a little bit earlier, but minor things.
Plater.
I think with Frontier, they are notoriously tight-lipped, like famous for it. And I think one of the reasons why is the community's response to information. And no, I'm not saying it's our fault that Frontier are tight-lipped. That they do choose how they react to feedback, but every time something gets changed or put in or even whispered about, there's this great bit of immediate reluctance from the community, regardless what it is. Carriers could have been put out with an upkeep of 5 million, and you'd still have people be just as loud saying, I don't want this, I don't want upkeep, I don't want that, I don't think it should be there, this is wrong. And you will have this thing happen. It'll just be different people doing it. There's going to always be this immediate pushback on whenever Frontier give out information, and I don't think there's been any piece of information they have given at any point in time that has been overall well received by the community. And because that happens, and because they immediately get this pushback against everything that they do, we don't necessarily get the information communicated to us in the way that we would like. Those of us that have a sensible head on and be like, oh, okay, I mean, you've done this, but I mean, is there a reason why it's like that? You typically don't get the answer. Unless you happen to catch one of the community managers on a really good day, and they are literally just about to walk in and talk to one of the devs about something, and then you get an answer on the day, and you're like, thank goodness, and you get the answer, and it's always a relief. And it's always a relief when you do get that piece of information. But how they responded? They've responded to it in the way that Frontier does, which is all they say is, we've heard your feedback, we're paying attention to it. The changes aren't fixed because it's the beta. And there's this, why is no one remembering that it's the beta and everything's up for grabs and could be changed? We just need to remember that if you're constructive and you deliver feedback, then you get a better response. That's it. And
Well said.
that's it. You be constructive, you be polite, you will always get a better response to I mean, everyone who's had a job has had a bad manager at some point. You've gone and you've done something, and they go, well, this is rubbish. Okay, do it better next time. Well, what does better look like? You have to say what better looks like, and the person may not necessarily know, lower prices. Okay, then you go too low, or you don't go low enough. And that's why people have to say, I would like this, and I think this would be acceptable, or that kind of thing. Giving feedback is a very, very complicated thing to do correctly, and to do in a way that will be positively received. And someone who is a professional people manager, I can tell you that there are week-long courses dedicated to these things that you can go on, and people still come out of it and still go, I don't like this. That is not the first words that should be out of anyone's mouth. It should be I see what you've done. I might have done this instead. Because you've not said it's wrong, you just said I might do it differently. And not everyone has the same opinions without new information. And that's a ramble.
So I'm actually to piggyback off of this. I know it's not my turn, but I'm wondering exactly to that point, the sentiment that's out in the negative noise that in the around the community, that like, yes, I agree with you, but like I hear people saying, but they're the game developers, not me. How come they don't know better? So what do we say to that? What do we say to, like, shouldn't they have known that this wasn't the case? And I think we've already offered little bits of an answer, but I would love to know your thoughts, like specifically based on what you were just saying.
Oh yeah. Frontier cannot play the game the way we do. It is impossible, because otherwise they wouldn't have any time to make the bloody game.
Here.
So they have to rely on feedback. So if they get something wrong and someone goes, oh, it's because the devs don't
they don't understand.
They don't understand. They don't know what they're doing. And it's, yeah, I mean, they don't necessarily know the same way that we do it. I mean, do you think that the people that have made and designed Fortnite are all experts in it and are all brilliant in it? No, of course they're not. It's not the same thing. There has to be, like, we are the experts because we play the game. We have thousands of hours in it. We get to that point. Yeah, and eventually you do get to this point where, like, well, I want to be able to do this, and like, well, that can't be done. Might be the response from Frontier, and that should happen.
They need us, and they need our cool heads.
Yeah, we have to be able to have sensible conversations, and I'm going to say it. No one should get as angry as some people are over a computer game, regardless of how many hours you have in it. There is far more going on in the world. I have been accused of blaming the victim, but guess what? There's no victim. It's a game, and you just didn't get what you expected. That's the answer, and I mean, it's two-way street. It's a two-way street.
Yeah, well said.
Astro?
Yeah, I first of all, I absolutely agree, Plater. I think the easy way to look at it is, I mean, imagine if you were ordered to, if you were a painter and you wanted to paint a picture for someone, you would start by getting feedback about it and then say, oh, what do you want? Should it be more red or more blue? But problem is, I don't think Frontier could just go out. Imagine if they just went out without announcing anything and just say, so what do you guys want for fleet carriers? It would be people talking left and right and east and west. So obviously what they have to do is they have to present something first and then say, well, here's something, what do you guys think? And then get feedback and then go through this feedback change iteration loop all the time. And that means, yes, the first shot is going to be maybe quite a bit off. As Plater said, Frontier don't play the game the same way we do. They don't spend the same number of hours in the game as we do. And I think people forgot really quickly that you were in week 1 of, or now week 2, of a 3-month test period. Take it easy. A lot of stuff can change. And a lot of stuff still will change. I think if we look back at this at this talk in like 2 months or 3 months when the fleet carriers are out, they're going to be very different from what we have today. I think a lot is going to change.
Witherspoon, you want to hop in here?
Oh, fascinating, isn't it? I think most of us probably agree with what Plato was saying. In a sense, by not being constructive in our feedback, we might well have trained Frontier not to share information with us until they're ready. Certainly, the idea of having a prototype makes perfect sense. You know, you certainly do want to say, look, this is what we're thinking of doing. Sort of, can you think of any ways that it could be tweaked? Otherwise, it's just as Astro was saying, it'd just get chaotic. But one thing I really would like to say is that Frontier really does listen. It listens to its player base. It may not show you that it's listening. It may not be obvious that it's listening, but they really, really do listen. They are making a game. They want the game to be best for us, and they really, really, really care about feedback.
Well said.
Burpit?
Yeah, I'd agree with what Wathers just said as well. Actually, they absolutely do listen, but it is sometimes quite difficult to see that that's going on. But they do listen, and you got to bear in mind as well that building a computer game, specifically something as big as Elite, is a massive process, and change is often slow. The other thing I just wanted to say on the subject of how we play the game versus how Frontier plays the game, for want of a better expression, is that Elite is quite unique, I think, in so much as you could argue, yes, it's an MMO, but they're basically building a universal sandbox, and then you go and play in it. So yes, there are some structured missions, sort of, kind of, but it's not World of Warcraft where you can follow a very definite path from A to B, and then you'll win the game essentially. The great example I suppose I keep coming back to is things like the Fuel Rats, the AXI. I've got a list there. Operation Ida, people like that. You know, that Frontier didn't design those. They've put scenarios into the game, and then we deal with them. The Fuel Rats is particularly a great example. I don't think anyone at Frontier said, "Oh, I know, let's have a breakdown service." You know, that just isn't how it works. It's a sandbox, and you get in a sandbox, and some people will build a shark, some people will build a castle, and that's what Elite Dangerous is. And the day it stops being that, I'll stop playing.
A really quick question, because obviously I've been in the game probably a lot less time than you guys. To me, it feels like perhaps with the sort of new community managers and everybody that we've got on board at the minute, to me, it feels like they're listening perhaps a bit more now than they ever have done. Do you think I'm wrong, or do you think
No,
that's
I think you're right.
correct? Or do you feel it's exactly the same as it's always been? But to me, they really seem to be seeking out feedback, constructive feedback. They've been asking for it everywhere. Surely shouldn't that give the community a bit more faith that they are genuinely listening this time round and actioning?
Sure should.
I think the September update was a bit of a wake-up call.
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Kai.
All right.
Bud.
So on the points of that were sort of the additional points, I agree with Reenie, agreeing with Burr, agreeing with Wotherspoon, agreeing with Down to Earth, agreeing with Plater, agreeing with Alec Turner. The fact of the matter is like, yes, they're making changes. They are hiring people. They're specifically going after MMO people. They're changing their practices. The level of engagement that we've seen recently with all of the visits on streams. We've got next Sunday, we're doing an interview with Bruce. 2 Sundays ago, we did an interview with Stephen Benedetti. I know Bruce and Stephen have appeared on pretty much everybody's streams, and they are showing an increased level of engagement and interaction like never before. With regard to and I think to Plater's point that he put so well, the fact of the matter is like when you're putting out a game, first off, you're going to have 1,000 different voices arguing at cross purposes. One guy's going to say it's too cheap, and the next guy's going to say it's too expensive. And no matter what they do, someone or both of those people are going to go, I'm not happy. Like they have to sort of, they have to design a process that they think is best, and they have to then try to sort of work with that, take feedback on board, but they can't lose track of their own personal, like what they're planning for. Look at World of Warcraft back in the day. Everyone complained, it's too hard, I don't like it. Blizzard said, okay, we'll give you all what you want. We're going to go ahead and cater to you. And then the vast majority of like the hardcore people were like, no challenge, I'm out. And then they bounced. Like you have to sort of be true to your voice of as an artist of what it is that you're creating or whatever. And in a sort of marketplace, you have to now balance in people's opinions. It's a very, very complex process. But with regard to your initial question, when you said, you know, is this good, or are they giving into, you know, player or people's demands? I reject the premise of your entire question. I don't think that it's accurate, because there's a vast difference between them going about their business and just getting blindsided with an open letter petition demanding you must do this, that, and the other now. That's one thing. Making a change on that can definitely be considered sort of giving in to the mob's demands. But this is different. This is a beta process, and the beta process works as such. Engineers put out a thing. They invite people to come try it early. People come try it. People say what's good. People say what's bad. That is solicited feedback. They're asking for us to tell them what we don't like and what doesn't work. And then they're supposed to make changes based off of that. This is not giving into people throwing a tantrum. This is them asking us to tell them what we want, and them giving it to us, or some flavor of that.
So the reason I asked this question is because I was worried it might set a worrisome precedent for what could be happening in the future, where people start writing about, well, the galaxy's too big, or this doesn't jump as far. And that's the reason I asked that question. I wanted to hear y'all's take on it. My personal opinion, I think they handled it well. I feel like there's a lot of changes they need to make. But what I kind of want to get into now is the decommissioning issue. I feel like that's something they still need to work on a little bit. And we're going to break from the typical thing where we go through the list. We're just going to let everybody kind of chime in here. So go.
Okay, I can start. I think if you want to talk about decommission, you have to talk about upkeep as well, because those two things goes hand in hand. You can't have one without the other. Because if you had upkeep but no punishment for not paying the upkeep, well, why would anybody pay the upkeep? Similarly, if you had a decommissioning system, well, you need to have a way to determine when you decommission it. That being said, I'm not necessarily sure like completely deleting it from your account, saying bye-bye, we're just taking it away from you, is necessarily the best option, though I don't think I feel as strong about it as many others do, because it can be, you can get around the issue. I think one thing that I think we should clarify right now, because I see a lot of people getting confused about this, it's not like if you don't log into Elite for 10 weeks, your fleet carrier is gone. you can deposit large number of credits allocated for upkeep. And let's say I deposit enough credit to pay my upkeep for 5 years. I could do that. I could go away, and if Elite was still running in 5 years, I could come back in 5 years and 9 weeks, and I would still have my fleet carrier. I would be a lot less wealthy, but I would still have my fleet carrier. So I think that's one of the... I saw a lot of people got confused about that, who thought if you're AFK for 10 weeks, your fleet carrier, gone. That's not the case. So, and also you can, at least if it was stated the way it was, if it's going to work the way it was stated in the handbook, you can sell services at the same price you buy them. It's not like that. At least it wasn't in the first week. It said so in the commander's handbook, but it wasn't so when we actually did it. So I'm not sure which is correct. I hope you can sell and buy at the same price. That would make sense. So in that case, if you are going away for a long period of time, well, if you're out in the black, you can suspend all your services, hopefully, by when it goes live, reducing the price. And I think I did the calculation, and it's going to end up at a maximum of around 12 or 13 million credits a week for all services, like every single service suspended. If you have all of them on. If you have some of the services you don't have, it's going to be less. And if you're in the bubble, you can go to a administration center and you can sell your services, and then you're paying 5 mil a week. So it's not that bad, I think, at the way it is right now. I would like to see it change, but I don't think it is that bad.
Agree.
Let me hop in here real quick. Number one, I know we have some folks that are on a time schedule, so if you need to burn out anybody, I very much appreciate you guys coming to this, and I hope we can do something like this again in the future. But I think Kai, you had something you wanted to chime in.
Yeah, just I pretty much agree with everything that Down to Earth Astronomy was saying. So the fact of the matter is the decommissioning process is the thing that is left that is giving everyone sort of the rallying point for the salty crowd to have salt over. They're saying this is punishing, and they throw out some, weird edge use case. Well, what if tomorrow I'm Jack Bauer and I find that I have to go, chasing terrorists through Kazakhstan for the next 5 years and won't have internet? Or if my aunt dies and for some reason she lives in the Congo and I have to go there and I live there for 2 years. Like, okay, I don't really see it, but whatever, dude. If that's the situation, I do understand just in principle the argument of people saying it feels punitive. I do understand completely Frontier saying we need a mechanism for moving derelict fleet carriers off the board. It's taking up space, it's taking up resources. We need a mechanism for that. I say, number one, there's so much salt that's been generated over the term decommissioning that as of now, change that name just because it's a PR win. Just rebrand it and then do exactly the same decommissioning. But when you decommission, hear me out. That's part one, is rebrand it by changing the name. Then do the exact same decommissioning process, the mechanics of it, as far as we take it off the board after X amount of time or whatever, but you add in a recommissioning button, but with a different name, whatever. But take out anything that's punitive on there. There's no cost. Your stuff doesn't get sold. It doesn't get whatever. It just goes into stasis mode. It's off the server. It's in a separate thing. And when you're ready to get it back, you click a button, and at no cost to you, or at some minimal, cost, just to try to counteract people like gaming the system, some small, okay, boom, you get it back. All your stuff is still there. You move on. The whole process of why Frontier says this needs to happen is to save system resources and to get rid of clutter. You can still do that by just doing exactly the same process, but in a way that does not in any way take any value or money or credits or anything from the player. If you just remove that part of it and rename it, you still accomplish exactly the same process of moving this stuff off of the server. But now when I come back a year later from hunting terrorists through Kazakhstan, I click the button to recommission, and at no cost to me, or at 10 million or some nominal little whatever, my thing is back. And then all of the people that are throwing salt have to go away because there's nothing left to talk about.
Oh, there will be. But yeah, I think that it's basically mothballing it, right? Or is that what people
Yeah,
call
you
it?
could call it stasis, mothball, dry dock. Call it anything other than decommission. Because even if you fix the process entirely, if you keep the same name, people are going to complain.
Mm.
How about anti-Christmas? Call it that.
I'll chip in. I would say that I mean I don't like the idea of you losing an asset in the way that you do, and especially the depreciation in value. I think is way too extreme. Normal ships don't depreciate like that. Modules don't depreciate at all. And I'm not sure that taking someone's toy off of them because they're not playing with it is the right thing to do. Some people like to have models on their shelves. I do. Just because I'm not playing with it doesn't mean you can take it away. I like having it, you know. But I think if they are going, if decommissioning it is and I'm highly aware, lots of people will say, yeah, probably 100% isn't, and it might not be. It is a server load issue. Then just give people a full refund back. Take it off of them, give all their money back. That way, it's a medium. It's in the middle. But to only give someone 33% back is not good at all. You should definitely have the ability to be able to rebuy it again and then take it and carry on. You know, if you want to carry on, I think that's going to be the easiest way to do it. If to clean clutter is the reason, that fixes it. No one's going to be upset by it because you'll have all your money that you can just rebuy a new one if you need to. No doubt, it's an automatic process that removes the upkeep and also again removes the discarded derelict carriers. That'll be an automatic process. Cool. There you go. It also decide who gets the money back as well and how much. So why not just do that? Yeah, it's that'll be fine. Because not everyone wants to preload for 5 years, or even a year. I will, because I have the credits, but other people might not. And at the same time, we talk about going off and to do things. I went through chemotherapy, a year and a half ago, and during that time, I couldn't even look at the ship coming up out of the hangar without feeling nauseated because I felt so sick. I couldn't play for months. So I would be maybe in that situation where I'd be like, actually, it would really suck if I lost it. And I wouldn't want to. I would want to lose out on that 5 billion just because I've got cancer. I'd be put off coming back to the game. I probably still would because I've got friends who play it. I like hanging out with them and all that kind of stuff. But it's that'd be enough to make me go, oh, I'm going to log in. It's going to be crap, and it's not going to be there. And that shouldn't happen. It not being there and having all the money back so you can just rebuy it. Cool. You're fine. But it being gone and you're not having the money to be able to rebuy it. And you can say that, oh yeah, but you can go and get 1 billion credits in an afternoon if you do mining. I mean, that is now we can do that. We don't necessarily know if it's going to continue to be like that. But there's very few other aspects of the game that offer a decent reward.
And even if you can do that, it just feels bad.
Yeah, I mean, it's having to work your way back up to where you were before. And the chances are, if you've had to take a long time away from gaming, there's something else going on that also feels like that in your real life, and no one's probably interested. So, but that's a very kind of, for me, personal situation, and the same way other people might be personal. Like Astro said that he's probably just going to whack a bunch of money on it. I'm going to whack a bunch of money on mine as well, so I don't have to worry about it. But I do know that eventually I will step away from Elite Dangerous for a period of time. I always do, and I always come back to it. But if I do that, then I stand a chance of losing something completely. I don't think that's right.
I can pop in here for just an alternate idea regarding upkeep and decon kind of completely that I think might actually make people happy. I don't know. That's very presumptuous, I know. But there's already a system where there's some wear and tear when the fleet carrier jumps. There's a cost incurred that is simply just, I don't know, spackling all the divots in the ship or something. And I think this would be important to do within the beta process, not have it be too late so that we could test, because I think fine-tuning the numbers would be important, but I think the whole upkeep thing could be just turned upside down, and now it's more of a wear and tear repair. So the carrier doesn't incur any upkeep costs unless it does something. So if a player were to simply deactivate it all and nothing is interacting with it, then it doesn't incur any costs for that player. But when they jump it, there would have to be, you'd have to make up for that gameplay wise, right? You'd have to increase the cost of its services actually functioning, not the services existing, but the services actually functioning and it actually jumping and so on would have to have some kind of increased cost. So you'd have to fine tune that. And then maybe decommissioning, that what that would leave us with is the server load issue, right? So if that's really part of what that system is in place for, then perhaps we have a system where if no player actually interacts with the fleet carrier, so I'm imagining, the owner disappears for months and months at a time, who knows, but perhaps their squadron is still utilizing the carrier, then it's still serving a function, and there shouldn't be any problem with it creating the server load that it creates. But if no player interacts with the fleet carrier for a certain amount of time, perhaps then it just pops off. And I don't know if we really need a super important lore reason for that, because, well, what have we then? We've got, a carrier that's not being interacted with by anybody, so nobody's going to know, right, when it disappears from the system. So maybe that would just replace upkeep entirely, and there's no more need for decommissioning. I do think, like, when the player came back, there's no reason why it shouldn't just pop back into existence for that player when they do a little check-in, with the server or something, right?
I actually really like that idea.
What are your thoughts?
I like that. The only thing is you need to make sure that it's explicitly stated that interaction, like no interacting with the carrier, means by anyone, because otherwise you're going to have people that game the system where I put 10 billion credits on my alt buys the carrier, then never logs in, and now I have a free fleet carrier for the next 5 years.
Yes, exactly. And I think the system, as I'm describing it, would cover, like, a situation where the fleet carrier owner is providing services for their squadron, but then has to disappear to who knows what, and the squadron continues to use it. Then it's still in the game and it can still be incurring costs. Hopefully the squadron are maintaining by being able to add something to the bank or whatever, or interact with its commodity market in such a way that its costs are covered. I still think having its costs be able to be covered by passive generation or maybe not passive, by interactive generation is important. But that would allow this all to kind of keep functioning, and server load is only used for carriers that are actually being utilized.
I mean, with that setup, you could completely remove upkeep. I could see.
That's the intent.
Yeah, exactly. You could remove upkeep. Then let's say, just to compensate, if Frontier wants to keep having the carriers be a significant money sink, then just increase the prices of the services. But it's a one-off thing. You pay once and you have the service.
I think the service should when the service is interactive with, right, it would have a wear and tear versus an upkeep, and that's sort of a name and symbolic change. Like, now it's incurring a cost only when it's doing something. And I think that could somehow work with all services.
So you're saying upkeep cost for example, I'm just going to pull one out of the blue. Upkeep cost for the reimbursement office is 0, but every time you do anything at the reimbursement office, it some way generates either a percentage or it generates X amount of flat amount of, hey, this is cost has been added, or shipyard or whatever.
Somebody had to sweep the floor at the reimbursement office because it got used.
When you think about it, though, that could sort of create a way for other people to sort of be malicious and then just, I'm going to swap ships 9,000 times. Ha ha ha! You just got $1 billion bill.
Well, maybe yeah. Well, so that's a tricky money balance, right? Yeah, I see that point for sure.
Yeah, I don't think having other people's action giving you an upkeep is necessarily good. I was more thinking like an internal clock on every ship carrier, or fleet carrier. And whenever someone docks, owner or visitor, and whenever someone, let's say the owner just opens up the managing interface so he can do it remotely, that clock's reset. And that clock could then be, 3 months, 4 months, something like that. And if there's been no interactions with it, nobody's docked at it, nobody logs in at it, nobody's opened up the managing interface in like 4 months, then you would, disable it basically. It would still be there. You could re-enable it by just by the owner interacting with it. But someone just had to dock at it and log in at it. That could work.
It still doesn't address the cost issue.
What cost issue?
The cost issue of, he was talking about trying to change the cost to where like you get rid of the upkeep cost and you replace it by some form of a cost for what you actually do with it.
No, just remove the upkeep and increase the price of the individual services as a one-time thing. Instead of having a wear and tear on services that others are using, just increase the price for the services so it's a one-time thing. I mean, I wouldn't mind if they stayed where they are. I think the prices where they are pretty fine. But if they were to remove the upkeep and then add an additional price to the services, I would be happy as well. If that meant they would then also remove decommissioning.
I suppose that the decommissioning, the only thing that is supposed to be keeping from is the server load. So if people are, I think that sounds like it could work. Somebody else wanted to jump in. I think I don't want to keep talking.
No, I was just sort of slightly worried that if this is one of these deep space support network ships, and it's in a really kind of out of the way part of the galaxy, it'd be a bit awful if it sort of flipped out of existence because nobody had been that way in a while, especially if you're the person who arrives there and discover it's not there anymore. So you need some way of bringing it back.
Well, based on what Down to Earth Astronomy just said, though, you could still do that. The owner of that particular carrier could go into his remote access thing and just say, like, click, I've ticked it, it's still active, even if they're not in the area.
Oh, so they just need to do that every now and again.
That was what he was talking about.
The server.
Yeah, like, so in that case, you as the owner would be saying, I am choosing to keep everything going, even if it's an extra cost to me, and I'm going to keep that system sort of re-updating by manually going in there.
It's an interesting proposal, but it's completely different from what we've got at the moment. So I don't know, are we really suggesting that Frontier changes track on that? Or is this just an interesting alternative?
I would say interesting alternative.
About upkeep. So,
well, let's shift gears here for just a minute because we're talking a lot about decom, and one of the things we didn't ask, or I didn't ask, was what do we want to
test?
Well, what do we want to see them used for in the future is probably a better way to put it. Or how do you guys see them being used?
Carriers as a whole.
So we're gonna just start at the top, start with the burr pit?
I mean, we can start there, but the whole idea was just open discussion on it. So,
okay. Well, all I'd say is, I mean, like, I can only really look at sort of our personal use case scenarios. As far as how they're going to be used, I think for us, or for me primarily, mine's either is mostly going to be doing trade. I'd like to do really huge trade runs with it if I can, and also as a sort of BGS support platform. Interestingly, just the last couple of weeks, our in-game faction has had a need for large landing pads in systems that are not a huge distance away from where we're based, but it would have been an extremely nice convenience to have a carrier parked outside of a combat zone or parked in a system where we could land some large ships. So I think mine will probably get used for that. Ree, I know you've got some sort of thoughts on what you might do with yours.
Yeah, I still got to get over the upkeep issue though. But if I can get through that, then
we'll get you through that.
Yeah,
don't worry about
I know that. But if I've still got to look at it, objectively, that if I was a player on my own without the support of the burr pit, could I still actually maintain it on my own? But as a videographer and doing my camera work, I just want to be able to load all my ships up, take it out to destinations, take various ships out, because with footage you get bored of seeing the same ship. That's definitely what I use it for. I'm still not quite convinced I'm going to be able to do it if the upkeep cost is too much, or so I've still got a few creases to hopefully iron out. But yeah, it'd be great fun if I can just do that, go off in one direction, take it off with me, take my big support vehicle with me, and have all my ships loaded up, do a bit of mining in between to break up what I'm doing, and off we go. Happy days. Bit of exploration, bit of videography, job done.
Lovely. Astro?
To me, I think the commodity market is the most interesting thing, and the way you could use it to either support deep space mining missions or just outright put it in a close to a mining hotspot like we have Boran now. That's obviously going to change, but put it there, and people could use it to set up buy orders to buy materials to make it more convenient. I think at least that's the thing that's most interesting to me.
Nice. Waterspoon.
Galactic Fringe exploration. This is the longest jump range that anything we've had up till now has been able to achieve. There's places we can get to with fleet carriers that we can't get to by any other means. De-risking exploration, having the repair stations, the deep space support network. Fuel rats. So fuel rats are tiny little mobile scoopable stars, but I'm pretty sure that the fuel rats could use fleet carriers as bases for sure. Trading post, the East India Company, which trades goods with other sort of players who are trying to unlock engineers. Fleet carriers could be brilliant for that. Forward repair and supply for say anti-Thorgod campaigns, that sort of thing is good. And Operation Ida. One of the things they've had problems with is that you get these stations which are completely out of the way, miles from the nearest supply station. So what you do is you load up with 25,000 tons of whatever it is the station needs to be repaired, take the fleet carrier across and unload it again. That's just a few things I can think of.
It's a game changer for them, surely.
And that's before you even mention the Hutton truckers. You know they're going to do some crazy stuff with them.
Oh, yes.
Right on. Plater?
I'm going to go completely out there and say I see a universe where there are no NPC stations, only fleet carriers owned by players, where we have a true player-to-player economy, not just market, not just where you sell stuff and it disappears, but an actual circular economy where things are produced from raw materials and sold to others in a controlled manner, so that it doesn't get totally ridiculous out of hand with credit buying and selling by third parties and all that crap. But you have this wonderful opportunity to create a flowing natural economy. So you put your purchase order out. In fact, that needs changing anyway, but that would somehow go with that. But you'd open it up so that you'd be able to buy materials from people, and then because your carrier's perfectly loaded out to, it's got a fancy shipyard, you're selling ships. Not necessarily at a ridiculous price, but you're selling them so that people be interested in them. But actually, you know what? The only place that you can get ships now is going to be from other players, and you have this happening, this creating, and that would be amazing. Horrifically complicated, no idea how it'd be implemented, but wouldn't it be cool?
And that means you could have bubbles wherever you wanted. Wherever you set up a fleet carrier, that become a new bubble.
Yeah.
Well, that's I guess sort of we're next up, and that brings me sort of my point of all the things that I see. I see the hull seals using them. I see the fuel rats using them. I see people using them for trade purposes. I see the DSSA. I see individual explorers going out there and exploring through the galaxy on their own. I see AXI using them. I very much want to see some sectors get unlocked in the Col 70 sector, and now there's a dozen systems that are unlocked in there that you jump your fleet carriers in, and that's the only human presence is those fleet carriers, and you use them to rearm, refuel, and get out there and take the fight to Tharg. I would love to see all of that, and to Plater's what Plater was saying. I don't really foresee a situation. I kind of don't like the idea of getting rid of all of the NPC stations, because I would like to see the bubble stay the bubble. But what I would like to see is in December, when we get the new era, if just, I don't know, per se, maybe by chance, that includes base building, just a wacky thought, and with those bases, there's the means of production. There's some ability for players to create their own, items. And now you find, a dozen friends go out to an area 40,000 light years in any direction and create their own micro bubble where their fleet carriers are working in conjunction with their bases on a couple of planets, and with between the production of those bases and the ability, the docking and sales abilities of the fleet carriers, they become interconnected, and you have still the bubble for the people that want to, you know, sort of the starter zone area. You still have the bubble and it's still there, nothing's taken away. But for the people that really want to go out there and just engage in that pioneer spirit, they make their own micro bubble wherever, and maybe people know about it and maybe people don't. It's just
Love
out
that.
there, man.
Yeah, I'd love that.
Beagle
That
Point
would
bubble
be-
confirmed.
To me, micro bubbles, player control bubbles, that would make Elite Dangerous the single most like impressive game pretty much in the history of mankind. Like that the amount of sort of level of freedom that would mean would just be crazy out there.
But as
What do you guys think about, just everybody, what do you guys think about the idea of the fact that this is not in, these don't exist in a vacuum, that between now and December we expect some ramp up of different storylines or different something to happen to lead us to the new era? What do you guys think about the possibility of narrative changes that could be tied to fleet carriers?
Well, may I? May I step in on that one? Is that
I
okay?
concede the floor to my good friend Commander Burr.
I have some very specific thoughts on that, which I believe I've vented several times. So the Witch Head sector opened up. You like the perfect crowd actually to tell me if I'm mad here, right? So the Witch Head sector opened up, as a sort of forward operating base that would be really handy to jump into the Barnard's Loop area. My geography and understanding of the Elite Dangerous Galaxy is correct in that regard. Is that right? Would you say that was accurate, everyone?
yes.
Yep.
Okay, so it's not quite close enough, however, to be on the doorstep. However, if you had a carrier down there, you moved a carrier down to the Witchhead sector, and then went, right, okay, now we're good to go. You load everybody up. I mean, surely this has got the AXI salivating. You load everybody up onto your carrier, and then you jump to Tharg the Mighty's doorstep, and then in you go into what we think is the area that the Thargoids predominantly inhabit. If you cut it down to bare basics, and if you look at carriers at Frontier as a project that was undertaken by an IT department, quite often you'll find a case where there's a number of projects that all come together at the same point, and then new feature arrives, whatever that happens to be. Carriers fell behind. Carriers failed to reach its deadline. Plus, there were one or two other problems, and as a consequence of which, we've had a 6-month, 7-month, possibly a year-long gap where not much has happened, particularly with regards to the Thargoids. I honestly think that when Carriers finally launches, at the very least, something is going to happen with the Thargoids, and I think we'll be moving into the Barnard's Loop area. And also, I've said this before, I wouldn't make any long-term plans for buying property on Earth. I don't think the bubble is in danger of being burnt, and I don't think Sol is in danger of being burnt, but I honestly believe that Earth is toast. And have I gone too far here? And like, for example, the White House is on Mars. It's not on Earth, it's on Mars these days. So there's no reason why you couldn't just stomp all over the strawberries on Earth. So I don't know that will happen in June, but I certainly think Barnard's Loop will open up in June, July-ish, maybe, possibly, maybe.
Awesome. Who else had
Great.
some? Hop in.
Wow.
Okay, good.
Oh, wow.
Okay. all right.
It's
You
settled.
How
Dump
about
them all, Burr.
Sorry, everyone.
I 100% agree, man.
It's an interesting thing to think about how. So, I mean, what we're looking at right now, the way these fleet carriers are, we're looking at base building. That's what we're looking at. We're looking at the bare bones of how bases are going to work. And I think the way that they've done fleet carriers basically confirms that we're getting base building for the new era, the 2020 update.
I'll go you one further.
It doesn't officially confirm it, but yeah.
I'll go you one further. Why is it that they included the marketplace standard on every carrier? Why would you possibly do that? Well, it occurs to me that you would do that if you really, really wanted to make sure that everyone had one because you were really, really interested in collecting the data from
Yeah.
how they get used.
Yeah.
So Elite Dangerous has never had a player-controlled economy. And now, for the first time, Elite Dangerous has the ability for players to trade directly with each other. And they didn't just include marketplaces, they also included, for the first time, an actual meaningful material, a commodity that we would be interested in trading for use. Everything else up till now, bio-waste, low temperature diamonds, the only reason why you have to buy it is to sell it somewhere else, so arbitrage. But now, for the first time, they introduced tritium. I can sell you something that you as a player can actually use. So if you put markets and you put one thing that players can actually use, you get a 6-month-long unannounced beta test where they sit behind the scenes, look at all the metrics and see what the heck we do with this, and then say, okay, we feel comfortable that that's how this works. All right. And the storage part, we feel comfortable. We're seeing all the problems. We're seeing the issues. We've handled them. Now we can include storage for everyone. Now we can include markets in just the regular stations because we've kind of whatever. Now we can create production so that these players can actually build things that they can meaningfully trade with each other, that they'll have a purpose for. Like, I think they're really, like, these are very, very good signs for what's to come when you really kind of sit down and think about, like, well, why would they do it this way? Why would they do it? You know, it's like, well, it seems very limited for a market. Yeah, it is very limited for a market. And you know what a smart person would do if they're trying to add a marketplace to a game that has never had one, that's already established for years? They would do it very slowly and very carefully and track the data.
Interesting.
You know, kind of to your point is that, you know, everything that is in the game right now, commodity wise, is something that you can't really do anything else with. And if you're going to have a ground base at some point, which I think that we're going to have, it's not a stretch to think that we're going to have manufacturing of some type. And, you know, having fleet carriers, every one of them having the commodities market makes it to where, you know, you have the ability to sell what you're making. And part of like the way they did the ships to where you can buy packs of ships or whatnot, maybe that's because the next step is to you build a ship and you sell it the way it's outfitted, the way you outfit it. And they could actually go so far as to say, well, maybe certain ships have become rare because of the Thargoid attack or something. Maybe anacondas are now rare. Maybe vets are rare in the galaxy now. Only a few people can get them, and maybe the only certain markets that will have them, and they won't just be everywhere like they are now.
They could make a simple law argument, like imagine the Thargoid War ramps up again and the Federation or Core Dynamics goes, well, we gotta prioritize producing corvettes for fighting the Thargoid War, and there will be less available for, well, quote unquote civilians to buy.
Maybe there's so many different things and different ways that they can go with it, but like I may have listened to another discussion or roundtable discussion or whatever in the last couple of weeks that kind of focused on the issue of like, well, what's it for? I don't really see why anyone would use this. And just in the last 10 minutes, we've run through so many between, you know, AXI and IDA and the fuel rats, and the fact that, like, for the first time, the buckyballers, you know, they use stations as their waypoints in their race. They can now craft their races. They can put stuff everywhere. Players, we can use them as player groups to sort of generate awesome sort of content and awesome, like, there's so many things just with what we know now. There's so many ways that we've just run through how you can use them. And then when you tie that to the stuff that we suspect / hope is coming, there are so many more cool things that will open up. I'm feeling like there's tons of uses for these things, and there's more coming. And I'm super, super hopeful and excited.
+1.
Yeah, I'd agree with that as well. Yeah, can I just jump in quick?
Absolutely.
This will have to be a closing thought from us because we've got food, frankly. but all I'd say is like just to tie into what Kai just said is pretty much from my perspective, I think the whole way, and I know I said this before, but the whole way Elite is built is it's a tool set, it's a sandbox, and fleet carriers are another tool in that tool set, and Frontier will chuck them in there, they'll give them a degree of functionality, and then they'll sit back and see what we do with them.
Yeah.
And I think I just hand on heart believe that is the way mostly that Elite Dangerous is built. There aren't really any walls or any constraints or any rails that you have to follow for the most part. That's basically how this game works. I know quite a few people often struggle to see that, but that is the nature of the game, and the day it stops being that will be the day that I stop playing it. So when Frontier turn around and say, we can't wait to see what people do with these things, I genuinely think they mean that, because they don't know what people are going to do with these things. I don't think they would have turned around and said, oh yeah, the DSSA is going to be a thing. If anybody hasn't seen that, look it up, because it's amazing. The FleetCon people are looking to put a fleet carrier in every single sector of the galaxy that long-range explorers can use from now until the end of time.
And can I just echo what you're saying, Burke? Because you know exactly what you just said, that they're going to sit back and see what we all do with it. That's the beauty of Elite. And surely going back to the nugget of why we decided to do this roundtable to start with on the sort of low sodium friendos, at the end of the day, surely this has to be a positive thing and give people some encouragement that there should be and will be some really exciting stuff to come, even if you can't see it quite right now. The potential that Kai's just talked about, that all of you guys have just talked about, is all there. It has to ultimately be positive, surely.
Yeah, they just give us shovels. We got to go out there and build stuff with it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, completely. Yeah.
Yay, sandcastles.
Well, I think that's about where we need to wrap it up, guys. I want to thank every single one of you guys for joining us. I want to thank you guys for sharing your time with us and your thoughts. Alec Turner, thank you. Burr Rainey, thank you. Astro, thank you. Plater, thank you very much. Waterspoon, thank you very much. Thank all of y'all very much.
No, thanks for inviting us, mate. Absolute pleasure.
Thank you.
It was a great discussion.
I really look forward to doing this. I mean, maybe we start doing this every month, every couple of months or something. I don't know.
No, I'm not doing it again.
Who's lying about
don't like
being
you that
good,
much.
yeah.
I look forward to seeing all of you guys as we discuss the Meta Bay, or the May Beta. Yeah.
I
Meta
do.
Bay.
The Meta Bay, yeah. I do have a question. What kind of food do you guys have?
Oh, we're having pasta tonight.
We're having pasta.
Oh,
Pasta.
Oh man, I'm
And
hungry.
garlic bread. No.
Garlic? No.
Mostly about the garlic bread, if I'm being brutally honest.
All right. Well, I think this is where we're going to wrap it up there. Again, thank you guys very much for doing this. I had a great time.
Yeah, really enjoyed it.
Thank you
Sorry
guys
about
so
the
much.
technical issues on my end. I think I've had Discord crash like 3 times the entire time I've had it, and it crashed and just beat. And then my little toggle mute thing was going crazy on me too. So yay!
It's been so great, sharing audiences and with all these thoughtful voices. This is the highlight of my roller coaster so far.
Yeah, man. This has been great. And
That's not good. That means it's only going down from here, isn't it?
for all of the fans of all of the different streams, because it's like our fans, your fans, their fans, all of these different groups. I hope that people have enjoyed, and I hope that you click the like button, donate to the Patreon of your streamer of choice or whatever, like show that appreciation for the fact that these guys are coming out and are willing to stand up to the negative backlash and say like, hey, there's some cool stuff here.
Right on. Well, that is where we're going to end the Loose Screw stream. Thank you guys again. And one quick thing, if anybody on my stream does not pay attention to anybody else in this stream, please go and watch what they do. Go watch Burr Pit. Go watch Down to Earth. Go watch Plater. Go watch Galnet News Digest. These guys do a lot of work long before Kai or Trax came along, and you guys do great work, and I thank you guys for that.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
And check out the Buckyball Racers Club Discord. It's awesome.
Thank you. Yeah, that was the other one.
Yeah,
Alec.
absolutely,
I was
yeah.
going down the list and forgot him. I hate that I forgot Alec now.
Nah, it's all good,
It's
brother.
been fun, everyone. Thank you very
All
much.
right. Thank you,
Ciao.
guys.
Cheers.
Thank you.
Take care.
See you later, gang.
Cheers, then.
Bye. Okay, I'm out of Discord, and I'm just gonna stop my local recording here as well. There we go. Gonna take care of that later. Whoops. And drop out of the station. There we go. Perfect timing. Okay. Let me just get rid of this. So this was actually perfectly timed. Back at the station now for the next sell. Hope prices are still valid. Again, if you guys, sorry if I haven't been able to reply to chat. I have been trying to keep an eye on the chat channels as well, and there was definitely some good comments in there. And again, I have a few minutes if you guys have additional questions. There was one not too long ago. Hold on, let me just park my ship here. That I wanted to address, but now I can't find it because it scrolled away. Where was it? Oh yeah. It was someone asking how it was on my comment that I think the commodity market was about interesting. Like, how would you make it profitable? And I think the idea. Have I requested docking? No, I haven't. What's going on here? Come on. There we go. The point is, imagine if you had a system like Boran and you park a fleet carrier in there and you say, okay, I'm going to buy low temperature diamonds for 1.1 million in system. And in a week where the prices are either low or just mediocre, going to a fleet carrier in the mining system and selling it at 1.1 would be, I think, quite a good offer for most miners. They save the travel time and they get the same price they would at other stations. When the prices then high as they are now, you would then jump the carrier to where the prices are good and then set those diamonds up for sale again at, I mean, right now I can in a full Python, I can sell low temp diamonds at 1.5. So let's say that I sell them out at the carrier at 1.4, right? So that means I could go out to a carrier just outside the dock, fill up on 200 tons of diamond, sell them with over 100,000 credits profit per ton. 100,000 credits times 200, that's 20 million per run. So I could just go on dock at a carrier, fill up on diamonds, go back 20 million in my pocket. I could easily do 10 of those runs per hour, and that would be 200 millions per hour doing that. And maybe I would give a slightly bigger margin. Maybe, I mean, this is more than 100, right? Right now we have 178, so it would be closer to, let's say, 350 mil per hour. But doing that trade, I bought it at 1.1 and I sold it at 1.4, meaning I've made 300,000 per ton. It is definitely possible. There is enough margin in the market if you can find a high enough commodity that people are naturally generating through mining, that you can actually make this run around and give that some decent profit. So yes, you can make it work, but that depends how it's going to work at the end, of course. But I think it's doable. And there we go. This works. Oh yes, Dexter has a good point. This will only work for mining. And I would definitely like that too. I mean, you could do it with other commodities. It would be a little bit more difficult because you would have to go on spot when a specific commodity was really, really cheap, and then move the carrier there and then hope people would buy it to sell the carrier just outside. So yes, it would, for it to be scalable, it right now it will only work for mining, but you don't have to do any mining yourself to do it. I mean, there's no reason why I don't have to go out and do the mining myself. I'll just park it in the mining system and wait for people to come and sell to me. But yeah, I agree. Right now, it would only work for mining, but in the future, hopefully that will be expanded to more different types of materials. Okay, let's just do a quick sum up of here where we are. Almost 2.5 billion credits. I'm almost halfway there to the fleet carrier. That's pretty good. In the last 24 hours, I've mined, what, 1.6 billion credits. I've been doing a lot of mining the last couple of days, or well, the last 24 hours. So, carriers need NPC trading. Yeah, that's the thing we didn't really talk about at all, but it could be nice if the NPCs would naturally begin to work and trade with the carrier. I agree. Simon, you have a good point. Yes, me and 50 other fleet carriers would be parked in Baran, but there's no way that I can pay. Remember, I have to pay for those diamonds. And a full fleet carrier, let's say 20 tons, 20,000 tons of diamonds, that is a lot of money. That's like 22 billion credits to fill up a fleet carrier. Not a lot of people is going to have that, and it's going to be filled up really, really quickly. I mean, just me in the last couple of days has mined 1,000 tons of diamonds approximately. So I could just, like, the last couple of days, I could fill up a 20th of a carrier in diamonds. So I don't think it's going to be an issue that there's going to be a lot of carriers, because no one's going to be able to have the funds nor the space to completely block the market in one carrier. One guy is going to run out of money real quick, or they're going to run out of space real quick. Remember that these high prices, they only happen like every other week maybe. So you would have, let's say, a 2-week period where fleet carriers could get filled up as they were running out of, each of them would be filled up. I think, like, combined in the community, you could, I don't know how much material is being mined in Baran at the moment, but it's a lot. I mean, we are talking tens, if not hundreds of thousands of tons of diamonds every single day that's being mined out of Baran. That is multiple fleet carriers full every day, I think, that's coming out of Baran. And if it just became not that the way you did it, that you went to a fleet carrier to sell, then yes, you could create a market around it. If someone has 20 billion credits, well, I'm not far from it right now. I have, 14 on my main character, just in raw credits, not talking assets, but 14 on my main character, and now 2.5 years, so that's 16 and a half, so I'm not too far from the 20 billion mark. And I'm gonna mine this character all the way up to 5 billion credits. You have here, Hawk Gaming says he has 20 billion plus, we have other people with 12 billion. I mean, if you enjoy mining, then you can easily get to 20 billion, but unfortunately it requires that you enjoy mining. So yeah, it's definitely doable. Anyway, I'm gonna close the stream, but there's a few things I just want to mention. First, the next stream, let me actually get to the end scene, let's do this right. The next stream is gonna be on Tuesday. The exact topic is, as always, not 100% sure. I might go and do some more mining. Now we've done some mining today. I also consider going out doing some exploration again. It's been a while since I've done that. So there's some different ideas about what I'm going to do. But more importantly, was it on Friday? Yes, it was on Friday. Friday morning, the channel surpassed 50,000 subscribers. So first of all, thanks a lot to all you guys who have been subscribed, either if you just joined yesterday or a few minutes ago, or as Imri here just subscribed right now, or if you've been with me pretty much since the start. Thank you to all of you guys. Celebrations is being planned right now. I'm currently getting in some prizes for giveaways, and they're gonna be all kinds of stuff happening. Stay tuned to the channel. There will be some behind the scenes kind of stuff. And you can actually already now go to, if you go and check out the merch store. Actually, let me just see if I can find this here myself. This is my dashboard, but that's probably okay. Storefront. There we go. If you go into the merch store, I'm pretty sure there will be a link. It's already in chat. There you go. And you scroll down a bit. I should put these up higher. Why are they not in the storefront? Oh, there they are at the top. There we go. 50,000 subscriber special merchandise. It's here for a limited time. Once the celebration events is over, it'll be removed and it will never come back. So it's a good chance. You can't see anything because I'm not showing you my screen. Wonderful. Let me try that again. Here we go. At the merch store, where there's just been posted a link. you can see here we have the new celebration merchandise is out, and it is here for a limited time. It will be gone when the celebration is over. You can go ahead and check it up. I've already ordered mine, so it's now being shipped. And I'm really, really pleased with the new design. Oh, hold on. Was that Oh, Telex. By the way, a sidewinder already. I don't think she's into sidewinders. But yeah, that's there. And again, celebration events are coming out. Also, the Commander's Toolbox, the homepage I've been building over the last couple of months, since November, it's finally being like in the state now where I'm thinking now it's ready to be launched. Announcement videos coming out pretty soon. I saw that was posted as well. Yeah, there we go. Thank you, Dongalora, for posting that as well. Go and check it out. Lots of useful tools, useful guides over there. I mean, if you play Elite, you will find something over there that you find interesting, I'm pretty sure. Oh, how do we get the Patreon discount? So if you are supporting the channel on Patreon, there is on Patreon, I have a post. So go to my Patreon page. There is a Patreon only post there where there is a discount code that gives you a I believe it's a $5 discount per item. So it's not just a percentage, it's a per item thing. That would be the same, but yeah, per item you buy, you get a discount. But again, the code for that is on the Patreon page. If you're supporting the channel already on Patreon, you can go and read that. If you guys have problems finding it, and you are supporting on Patreon, then do get in touch with me and we'll figure that out. Yeah, I think that's it. I'm gonna go out and get some fresh air because this small room has now been lit up by massive lights for the last 2 hours and getting a little hot in here. So I'm gonna go out and get some more water. Anyway, guys, thanks a lot for watching. I really hope you enjoyed these live streams. I know I haven't been doing any roundtables lately. With a new group today, and it's quite nice, quite a nice change of pace, I think, having a little bit more of a positive outlook rather than some of the usual salt that I often had to run around in some of these roundtable talks. So I think it was really nice, and I really hope you will tune in next time, because I'm pretty sure that's not the last time that you've seen the low sodium Superfriendom being live streamed. But anyway, thanks to all you guys who've been donating today. Thank you, Donglor, for managing the chat for me today, especially now when I couldn't read the chat as much myself. If you like the stream, go down, give it a like, subscribe to the channel, follow over on Twitch if you watch over there, and also feel free to drop by Discord. I hang out there most evenings, so I'll definitely also be around later tonight, maybe doing some mining if any of you guys want to wing up. But thanks a lot for watching, and until next time, I'll see you guys in safe. I will see you guys in space.